Are we live?
We are live.
Okay, so we're going to open this meeting of August 4th. This is our regular council meeting. 3 or 4 minutes late, but welcome to everybody. And before we move on, I would ask if we could have a moment of silence, please. Okay, thank you. I'll also remind all of council that if you have any disclosure of interest, you may declare it now or anytime during the meeting. Seeing no disclosure of interest, we'll move on. I do have a motion that council agree to move items 8C, F, G, and K from information item to action item for discussion. Moved by Jeff, seconded by Claus. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Moving on, I have a motion that the regular meeting of council agenda dated August the 4th be approved as amended and moved by Ian, seconded by Karen. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. So the next, so Jasmine, on our agenda, 1D, we have the minutes of the previous meetings. We've got all of the minutes there. And then, so the business arising from, if we can just have a business arising from all of them together, is that okay?
Yes.
My next motion that I have here is for the minutes. It says that the minutes of the regular meeting of June the 16th, 2020 be approved as circulated. Moved by Claus and seconded by Ian. All in favor? That's carried.
Question?
Before I should have maybe caught you first there, Karen, but these are the minutes for the June 16th meeting. And what was the question?
On the McLaughlin, just making sure that we did not pay that.
We have
So,
not.
okay, so I think then I'm just going to finish this motion. This is just for the minutes, and then I'll go to the business arising from. Is that okay?
Okay.
So all in favor of the minutes, no changes? That's carried. Thank you. And I'm going to go back to you, Karen, or anybody, for business arising from these minutes. And I'll start off with you, Karen.
It was just that confirming that McLaughlin had not been paid and Jasmine confirmed it has not.
Yes.
Okay. And Claus?
Yeah, just on, I believe it was 3C, Council Director staff to bring forward a report regarding boundary road agreements.
Mhm.
Any work been done on that?
Yes,
that-
we have.
Is that June, is that the
June
last,
16th.
Claus, is this for the June 16th meeting?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so sorry, Jasmine, yes?
Yes, we have done some work on it, and I am anticipating that we should be able to have a report in September.
Good, thank you.
Anything else? My next motion then is that the minutes of the special meeting of June the 22nd, 2020, June 23rd, 2020, and July 29th be approved as circulated. And that is moved by Karen. Seconded by Jeff. All in favor? That's carried. Any business from any of those? Seeing none, moving on. Now, Jasmine, just a question, this is for you. Regarding the minutes of did we do, where was the minutes? The June 2nd minutes.
June 2nd were approved at the meeting on June 16th.
So, okay. I guess I just had one question, and maybe it was in the 22nd, I'm not sure. I don't have it in front of me, but I did have a question about that. The official plan review, was that on this June 22nd meeting?
No,
No,
I think it's-
Okay,
I think it's in the next one, Reeve.
the next one, okay. All right,
The
okay,
29th.
then that's, we've got all of those done. No more business arising from any of those minutes. That's good. We have no delegations, and then moving on to the first report, which is, I guess you're going to handle this, Jasmine, as we can't get Jamie.
I
That
believe-
is the.
There she is.
Oh, there's Jamie. Okay. This is the gravel tender results. And I'll go to you, Jamie. Thanks. You're mute.
we can't hear you.
A
Can,
nice picture
Yeah,
behind you. Oh. There. Oh,
still muted? No.
No volume.
No volume.
anybody know sign language?
Yeah.
A little bit.
Well, we'll give her one more second.
Can somebody send her a text that she knows that she's got no volume?
She does know she has no volume.
She knows?
Yes.
You know,
Reed?
Ian?
I'd like to suggest maybe that we'll move on to the next item and give her a minute to get herself logged in.
We can do that. That's not a problem. I'm going to move on then to 3B, and that's yours, Jasmine, and the reopening.
Thank you, Reeve Dobson. So we've put together the attached reopening procedures, keeping in mind that the township does have some existing internal cleaning, screening procedures, as well as internal just COVID-19 procedures in general. So this will add to our suite of procedures. I'm looking for council endorsement of our procedures, with the recognition that some of these may change depending on the increasing or decreasing of the COVID-19 threat in the community. So one of the aspects that may change is as risk factors reduce, including resuming indoor in-person meetings. Keeping in mind that some of these directives are also made not only with general procedures in mind, but also with some individual limitations as well. So it depends on certain staff members. So today I am asking for council's direction and endorsement of the reopening plan to reopen the office tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. And I'm also asking for council direction related to in-person council meetings. So it's also the ability for us to get internet at Rosedale Hall, along with some direction as to how council wants the in-person meetings to look. So particularly there's a couple things that I'm looking for from direction from council is the internet, and we'll talk a little bit more in general about that. The date of the next in-person meeting, confirmation whether that the public should be allowed to attend in person, confirmation that we're continuing the live streaming, whether or not it be in person or not, and authorization for the purchase. We may have to purchase some minor equipment to enable some live streaming. So I'm just looking for discussion from council. So perhaps maybe we'll start with the reopening procedures and then proceed into the meetings. So does anybody have any questions on the reopening procedures?
So yeah, that's quite a few different questions there that need to be answered, but I do have I will later read the motion. It's just a general motion about endorsing and the reopening plan and so on, but I think we need to, we'll just keep it to a sort of a general answers here, I guess, to help you, Jasmine. So I think first I saw Claus.
Thank you, Reeve. So Jasmine, with the reopening, which is, you're saying starting next week, Monday?
No, it'll be
Tomorrow
tomorrow.
morning.
Tomorrow morning, okay, sorry. I think you mentioned before you allow one person to time in,
Yes,
that still stays?
yes.
Okay. And all
We don't
the-
have enough room in the front area to really maintain good distancing for members of the public.
And a plastic barrier was put up by the reception area?
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Okay, I think, I'm not sure, Jeff, if you put your hand up there, but I'm going to go to Karen. I'll come back if I see your hand. Karen,
Couple questions. The first one dealing as a follow-up to Claus. So it's one person in,
Mhm.
you'll have spacing outside for the 6 meter between, but how do they walk by each other? Like, are you going to have another area for like have them come out and go around, not on the sidewalk, so that they're not within the 6 meters?
So we do have
2
like,
meters? 2
we did
meters?
create 2 lanes. Sorry to interrupt. My apologies.
Yep.
We did create kind of 2 lanes, like an in lane and out lane. But it's difficult for us to utilize both entrances in terms of like making a one-way area because we'd end up going past a number of offices and indoor space. So we really only have the one entrance. So we've kind of made in and out lanes. But that's kind of the best of our ability of the limitations that we have of our facility.
So you've actually got it mapped out for how you exit versus come in?
Yes.
Okay. The next one has to do with the, if you have to have an in-person meeting, you meet outside, it says?
Yeah, right now, so right now it's no in-person meetings in the facilities. But we do facilitate outdoor meetings with certain staff members. So the person who would have the most in-person meetings would be our CBO. So often he'll meet people on site where distances can be maintained and with a mask, and it's a little bit more safe outdoors.
Okay.
okay, so Jamie, just to let you know, we're on the next issue, but we're going to come back to you, okay? So Jeff, next.
I mean, I dealt with this today, so I mean, at the dentist, so I kind of worked, but I'm just wondering if we could also do put a sign out on the door too, not on the door, but like in the parking lot where people park, saying, when you show up, like, please give us a call on your cell phone. And I recognize there's gonna be some people that don't have cell phones, but 90% of the people I'm assuming that show up have cell phones. Maybe I'm overestimating. And give a quick call to the office, and we'll let you know if you can come in or not. And then we'll say, yes, come in. You know, and of those off cases of people that don't have cell phones, I mean, we could, you know, mitigate that by them obviously coming up and knocking on the door.
Mhm.
Wondering if we had like a call-in system. It worked very well. I'm going to say when I was at the dentist, it worked very well. And it might help mitigate. Yes, you're going to have some people that walk up, but it might help mitigate like 75+% of people kind of coming up and you having that cross contamination that that Karen's talking about. Anyways, it's just a sort of suggestion that I dealt with today that was very fluid and worked very well.
And there was a bell put on the door now, I think just this week, maybe. I'm going to go to Ian next.
Yeah, I just actually, Rima, I was just going to bring that up, just with the doorbell. So
Mhm.
And so there's gonna be two separated lines, I assume, the
Yeah.
entrance and exit, so we should be.
I guess
Button.
are you finished, Ian?
That's,
So just to address those couple of comments there, Jasmine, how, when somebody gets to the door, let's say nobody's there and you come to the door, how will people know? Are we expecting people will just automatically walk in? And if they're already in there and the second person comes, how does the second person know that somebody else is in there?
So we are going to keep the doors locked, but a doorbell will be installed.
So then I think going back to the comment maybe made by Jeff, there's the more specific, simple instruction with a little sign, the better.
Yeah, I think the idea of calling ahead is still a good one, because that way there won't be people actually physically in line. They can stay in their cars if they can't come in.
Yeah.
That's easily implementable. We can put some signs up in the offices or right in front of the things.
Yeah.
But we've made it so you can't physically enter if there's somebody else in there. So
Perfect. No, that's perfect. Okay, anything else on this?
No.
If not,
so there's,
I have now, Jasmine, do you have everything you need before I read this?
I do not.
Okay, what else do you need?
Okay, so the
Maybe
next,
if you just ask each one, bring up each issue individually, and then we'll just get consensus.
yes. So the next item is internet at Rosedale Hall. So I've contacted the 3 major internet providers in the area. ExploreNet is not really feasible, and Bell I don't believe is particularly feasible, given their kind of limited technical understanding of our needs for live streaming. So we aren't able to get wired internet at a speed that's going to be appropriate to continue to live stream, which I think all of council has clearly demonstrated as a priority. Storm was the only company that actually had a technical understanding of what our technical needs would be, and they're going to physically confirm our speeds, but it'll likely be a fairly large package of around $150 to $200 a month. Unfortunately, I can't confirm the pricing at the moment, but in terms of the speed and the technical understanding, I believe that Storm is our best option to actually be able to functionally provide live streaming. We run the live streaming from my home computer, and I do have fairly fast wired internet, and we do still encounter technical problems and some slowdowns as well. So I think it's very important that we get as fast as we can possibly get, so that we can continue with this. So I would like direction from council that you're okay with me with the provision of internet from Storm Internet. I was very much hoping that I could confirm the speeds and the price today, but unfortunately I believe the rain put a damper on their technical visit. I have concerns about the technical abilities of the other options.
Comments, questions? Klaus first.
Thank you, Reeve. I thought, Jasmine, a while ago, we were discussing this and that Bell was able to set us up with some kind of a phone line and internet service there.
So the internet that could be provided through wired internet was very slow speeds. So it was less than a gigabyte per second of upload speed and only 5 megabytes per second of download speed. So it was simply not going to be appropriate to provide what we want to provide.
Okay. So with Storm, then they'll be able to provide live streaming?
Yes.
Can we not go with Facebook?
It doesn't really matter necessarily that the method that we provide the live streaming. It's the internet speeds are absolutely essential.
Okay.
Karen?
So I'm a little lost on then how the people that are down like Bristow and stuff were able to continue to do, like, how did the kids do their schooling that was needed and things like that? by a provider if we can't get it at ours? And where are we looking to pull the money from in our budget by chance?
So it would be budgeted through the like the COVID-19 fund. So it's not necessarily a budgeted fund this year. I don't think anybody planned on putting internet at Rosedale Hall.
But there
And-
wasn't a line there.
And in terms of, there's a much different in participating in, like, say, a Zoom meeting than there is hosting a live stream.
Jeff?
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, I mean, I understand that the biggest thing is upload speed for sure, because if we're trying to upload a bunch of videos from there, I mean, we need something at least 5 megabits per second, because for kids being able to view everything else, they're getting that download speed of 10. That's plenty for what they had to do, but there would be problems for the uploading. That being said, I'm kind of going off on another spot here, though, where I think we should be continuing the way that we're doing these meetings and not trying to meet at Rosedale Hall, and worrying about the upload speeds and everything else. I think, like, I'm in the opinion that we're still in a very touch and go kind of time. And I mean, we could go ahead and try to do something like this in October, November. We're going to see second waves, everything else. And if that's what the data is showing us, then I mean, I think we have to be careful with talking about, we want to go back into the meetings and everything else. And I mean, sort of the thought process where, like, if our federal and our provincial partners are not willing to go back in any type of style and they're continuing with this, I don't see why we think we're any better and that we're going to be going to that style. I think we should be continuing doing what we're doing right now. And if we want to have a specific open meeting, like for our official plan, we could record that there and we can post it after, and we can invite people to come.
Exactly.
Or we could just do it over a live stream like this. But I just don't see us going to those places and doing that. On the other side too, as well, as I as much as the precautions we couldn't put into place, I feel a little leery going there too as well, especially after September starts and I go back to my employment. I feel I'm in an exposed area, and I don't want to compromise, and I don't want to put Claus and Bill out on a limb there, but I don't feel like compromising anybody that's in that sector. So anyways, I as much as, and there's a big cost thing that we're getting into now with too as well. So right now, I think, you know, we should continue what we're doing now. So anyways, that's kind of where I'm at with that. And I think we should forego trying to put internet at our Rosedale Hall.
Claus was next.
Yeah, thank you, Reeve. I don't want to repeat what Councillor Carroll said, but I think that the expense is just too much. I really don't think it's necessary. I think continue on doing what we're doing. People are able to get on to what they want to hear. I don't think this expense is worth it.
So Jasmine, do you want me to just get, oh, sorry, Ian.
Well, that's all right. I do kind of, I agree with Councillor Carroll in that sense. I don't want to spend a whole bunch of money over at Rosedale Hall for just stuck in a long-term internet contract with anybody for something that we may or may not utilize. I think that if, you know, it gets to the point where we can re-meet again, then I'm pretty sure we should be able to, between the 6 of us, distance ourselves maybe back at the township somewhere, if need be.
So Jasmine, is that enough consensus for you? I'm going to go to you, Karen, then. Yes.
The only, I mean, so I'm okay with what they're saying, except that you touched on the OP review and then Jeff sort of made a comment. I mean, when we have to have that public meeting, I don't think it's the best way to be doing it, but via the Zoom, that the public want to be able to get the information and be able to ask their questions, but not through Zoom. And I agree. I mean, I know that when I had questions on Matheson, I wanted to be able to get the answers. So that's the only thing, is with reference to whenever we decide to have that one. I don't know whether it doesn't get recorded or how it will work, but I think the public meeting for that does definitely have to be open for the public to be able to ask those questions.
Ian?
And I agree with that. I think that there must be a way to allow something like that to happen somewhere. I don't know where that is or how it works, but I think that then when we get closer to that time, if circumstances haven't changed, maybe they get better, or as Councillor Carroll suggests, maybe they get worse, and it's going to really going to be depending on what the outside circumstance and the COVID stuff is at that point in time, to whether or not we can or can't have those meetings. Obviously, the more input we have from the public in regards to some of these more important things is really important. But at the end of the day, we still have to make sure we're all safe.
Jeff?
And I think there's opportunities to be creative too as well. I mean, like we could have a meeting and do it like that. We could do the OP review just like this too as well, and have people submit questions and everything else. And if there's things missed, or if there's a question missed, we can have another meeting and address that too as well. I mean, we can do that quickly and easily. So I think we're not ever going to close people down. And as long as we're posting those videos after, I mean, we can record the videos if we go there, if people don't feel comfortable, and post it then, or we can do it like this. We can discuss those creative options, and people can always ask questions. They don't have to be at that meeting to ask questions. There's lots of times where people can't make it to that meeting and they want to submit their question at a different time or anything else. And as long as we're addressing those issues and we're addressing those questions, I mean, I don't think we need to be in that live state. I mean, we are in a very unique time, so there's not like we're doing something to try to like snowball. Like, this is a very unique time, so I think we can be creative, and as long as we're being open and we're trying to answer those questions. Anyway, that's just where I think we can go. So.
Okay, so Jasmine, on that point, do you have enough consensus there?
What I'm going to suggest is that I'm going to make a suggestion as to what we've heard, that the direction be that live stream meetings should be continued to held and not in person. So we're going to forgo the internet. Does council want to set a, when do you want to review this? So do you want to review this on a monthly basis? Do you want to review this every meeting? Because I think it's probably good for you to kind of check in and say, yes, it's working, no, it's working, everything's great now, so let's go back to meeting in person. So do you want to set a time to review this? So I guess we should go around the table and say, is everyone good with continuing live streaming meetings? And we'll just answer that question. And then we'll go around and ask, I'm going to suggest monthly, that it gets reviewed monthly. And we'll go around and ask that question. And then I think in terms of the official plan, which I think, sorry, Councillor Straight, I know, I think an additional direction can be made, and what you could do is direct staff and our consultant to look at some options that we can provide, knowing that our meeting on September 9th is not going to be the final meeting related to the official plan. So.
Okay, so I'm going to try to get this consensus going here. The first one, I'll go around, and that is, are we comfortable continuing our meetings live stream for now? Claus?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
Ian?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yep.
So you have consensus there, Jasmine, and
Yeah.
also, let's see, what was the next one you said?
To review this on a monthly basis.
Oh, yes, and I agree with you, Jasmine, there, monthly, I think, but I'll go around and we'll get consensus here. Claus, this is reviewing it every month.
Yes, monthly.
Karen?
I don't know if I want to go with monthly, or because the health unit and the province and stuff, they do change things. That monthly is okay, but if something comes up different, it could be addressed as a topic during a meeting.
So if we were going to do it that way, Karen, then it would be every 2 weeks instead of every month. But I'm just going to get consensus first with monthly. So Claus, yes. Karen, no. Ian?
I think we should do it every at the beginning of every meeting, and just in case something's changed. It's going to be a 5-minute conversation, probably, hopefully, or less.
Okay. Jeff?
I'll go along with Karen and Ian on that, because I think it makes sense. If we just have a quick chat at the beginning saying, yeah, like, we're still in the same situation, we're still in the same, okay, sounds good. And if we're not, fantastic. I mean, but yeah.
Yeah, we have been able to do that at our emergency meetings, and it takes basically seconds. We know whether we continue or not. And I would suggest that if anybody thinks that we shouldn't, we can always let the staff know between meetings our feelings also. So, Ian, did you have a last thing to say?
No, I'll let you finish it off if I have a moment at the end.
Okay, and so Jasmine, then I feel that we've got consensus then that we will review it at each meeting.
And then would council also like to provide direction to staff and our consultants to see if we can think up different options for the future official plan processes?
I think that we could maybe give you, I think, staff direction now to continue looking into that. Is that that's the consensus you're asking for?
Yes, that's what we got brought up. So.
Okay, so I'll go to Karen first.
Is there a chance that we can bump it back? Just in case things change in October, say, for example, or November?
It would affect our overall timelines in terms of like the contract that we have with our consultants. And we have to put out a lot of notice for each meeting. So I'm not sure if we could change the date, but we would have to do more, another advertisement. Put it in the paper again and circulate it again.
But I feel that we can continue looking into the different ways of doing that. And to go back to Jeff's comment about us, we should be able to be creative enough to be able to have that official plan review meeting, public meeting, to help the public as best we can under the circumstances now. But I'll go back to, I think it was Jeff there had a comment. Jeff?
Yeah, I was going to reiterate, the creativity is one of those things. I mean, we have the ability through Zoom to do a lot more too as well. I mean, like we can give out the Zoom information for that public meeting too as well. And Jasmine has control of the doc on that too as well. So she can then say, I have a question from whoever, and invite that person in for their question, and part of that too as well if they want to. Or we can have more people there. We can have everybody in. Jasmine can then unmute people. If they, they can put their hand up. There's an option in there to raise your hand, and Jasmine can see that to unmute that person. There's many options in Zoom that we can do with that. So anyway, just to reiterate, we can do this creatively, and it's very, very doable.
Okay, so anything else, Jasmine?
I just want to note too that the meeting coming up on the 9th is not going to be the last meeting related to our official plan. There's going to be more other options as well.
Yeah. Okay, so Ian?
I just like to, and let everybody remember that, and try and push the fact that having people sending their questions about what's on the agenda prior to, the agenda is a big help. If they have questions that are that pertinent that they want to get answered, forward them into the staff so that we can put them on the agenda and make sure that they get answered. And if we don't answer them over the course of how the topics discussed between council, then they can be brought up by staff and say, listen, here was one of these questions that was already asked. And instead of even waiting until the end when it's everything's still fresh in our minds and we're still on topic. I think that, the more that we can encourage that to happen, the better off that we are.
And not all questions have to get to the agenda anyways. A lot of the questions that would come in to the staff prior to the meeting can be answered on the spot.
Sure, 100%, I agree.
Okay, I have a motion here then, I'm going to read it, that council receive the following report.
Reeve?
Yes?
Dobson, I'm going to send, sorry, thank you, Councillor.
Sorry, I didn't see a hand. Who?
Jasmine.
Jasmine?
So because our motion as it reads now does include the proceed with internet services, I'm going to suggest, in order to reflect the direction provided by council, that somebody put forward a motion to amend, and that we take out that last paragraph, last sentence, and put in that council authorized staff to act as directed.
Okay,
So
so can somebody move to make that amendment? Moved by Claus and then seconded by Jeff. That the amendment, or that the motion is amended to delete the second part of the motion. Anything else on that? Any discussion? Is that okay, Jasmine?
yes.
All in favor? Okay, that is carried. And if you can make a note of the mover and seconder of that one, Jasmine, the amendment, because I don't have it in front of me.
Yes.
Okay, and then, so then this motion I have in front of me here now is that council receive the township reopening report, and that the following be approved, that council endorse the attached reopening plan and authorize the reopening of the municipal office at 9 a.m. August the 5th, 2020. And
And it would read that, and that council authorized staff to act as directed.
okay, so I'll take the other out.
Yeah.
To act as directed. And that motion is moved by Claus and seconded by, I think, Karen. All in favor? And that is carried. Okay, Jasmine, thank you for that.
Thank you.
And now we're going to go back to 3A. I think we can, hopefully we'll hear you now, Jamie. So I'll let you take over, and this is on the 3A, the gravel tender results.
Okay, can you guys hear me all right?
Yep.
Perfect. Okay, I had to phone in. There was a whole thing. All right, so the staff put out a tender in July as it was staff's intent that because the gravel that was requested for Richardson and McGuire was above and beyond the program for maintenance stone, a tender should be called for the added amount. Therefore, it was put out in the paper, and we did receive two submissions back. That was with Tackleberry and Kavanaugh. There are a few options that staff is asking for council direction on, and they are option 1, which is to award the extra tender to Tackleberry. Option 2, which is to exempt the procurement policy and possibly negotiate an extension with Campbell's for the additional stone, or cancel, or option 3, and that's to cancel the entire tender and roll that amount into 2021 with the additional stone that it will be mentioned in the committee of whole agenda later on. So there is quite a bit of funds left to complete this project for the extra maintenance stone, and there's about $77,000 still worth of stone remaining in that budget. So yeah, that's about it. So
Okay, thank you. Jeff?
So if there's, thank you, Jamie, that's great. So we have 77,000 left over. It's going to be around 55 for that we're tendering out. So we have about 22 left. What's the thought process? Are we going to use that for like calcium and stuff? Is that sort of like put it into that? Is that like use that? We need that for other material after we put this down?
no, we require that for calcium. So any of the calcium that's required to go on top of the additional roads will be placed with that amount. that remaining funds.
Follow up?
Yes,
Do we know what, so is that 20 grand or is it calcium 5,000 or is it like, what's the, for that amount of distance of road, is that pretty well eat up that last 20 grand or?
No, like depending on what we decide to put down as percentages for the amount of calcium, like you can tweak the calcium amount. So right now we, in early spring, we put down quite a strong, I guess, amount so that it holds throughout the entire summer. So if we were to reduce that, we could get more calcium placed with a little bit less cost, or we could add the same amount, which I would say probably between $5,000 and $10,000
Sorry,
for both the roads.
So basically Reeves, sorry.
go ahead. Yes, Jeff.
We're looking at we might end up with a $10,000 surplus out of that. I mean, I'd rather have a surplus than a deficit. So that's why, like as close as possible, but at the end of the day, we'll have about a $10,000 surplus out of that 230, what it is now,
34.
budget. We'll have about a $10,000 surplus.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yes, about, yes.
I mean, that's good. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Claus?
Yeah, thank you, Reeve. Thank you for the report, Jamie. The surplus, I would agree with Councillor Carroll to put that into the calcium and whatever's left over, put in the reserve. But having given this some serious thought, my suggestion would be to go with option 2.
Okay, anything else?
Sorry, can you
And I
repeat that,
guess-
Claus? I missed that.
I'm agree. When you brought up the conversation, Jeff, in regards to the calcium, use the surplus for calcium.
Yeah.
Anything that is left over, if there's a $10,000 surplus left over, put that into reserve. And my suggestion is to go with option 2.
Okay, sorry, thank you.
Okay, Ian?
Jamie, the putting on the gravel this late in the year, ending with the calcium, is there a worry that it doesn't get packed in properly? And so we start to go and do some bunch of grading or anything of that in the winter services, it's going to just come right off or anything of that nature?
I do have a little bit of concern with that, depending on when the contractor is able to provide the stone. If we're able to get it sooner in the summer, or I guess in the late summer, it'll be able to be compacted as road traffic runs it into the road. Once it starts to get into later August, September, and we're getting more of that rain, there is a little bit of concern that, it might not compact as great as it would if it was placed in the early spring to summer. But there are municipalities that do put stone down this late, and they deal with it. But depending on, again, what is below the gravel that gets put on as well, like the base material, if it's really soft to begin with, and it might work out great, it might not. I can't guarantee what it would be.
Okay, is in your recommendation, is there a cutoff date that we shouldn't really go past, or is it just more how the weather's going this year, or anything else?
I think if your contractor pushes you until the end of August or September, I would just say don't bother with it.
And add it to next year's.
Yeah, like just call it. There are dates there where they have to meet deadlines, and depending on what you're able to acquire with the timelines right off the bat with whom you choose to work with, they can either meet those dates or not, and then at that point decide what course of action you wish to choose.
And obviously that there's a time allowed for in the schedule for the public works guys to actually do the work.
Yeah, no, again, everything's weather dependent. So if it's great weather for the next month and a half, you know, great. Like it might go great, and you will have no concerns. If it starts pouring rain every week for a few days, or something else comes up that needs to get done as well, yeah, like the guys should be able to do it fine.
All right, thank you very much.
Claus and then Jeff.
Thank you, Reeve. Jamie, thanks for the explanation. That was, I had too, was our timelines. We're pushing pretty close here now. We're into some changing weather, although August is still supposed to be predicted quite hot. My question is, with some of the funds left over, can we possibly approach the contractor supplying the gravel to compact it with the rollers?
Possibly, yeah. I don't, it wasn't in the tender, so that would be an extra or something that would have to be worked out with whomever the contractor is that you choose. But I can't see why that's a problem. That would probably be able to be dealt with through Andrew until somebody in the position gets hired, or even Daryl too. The lead hand.
So what, if we were to, when we decide tonight, how long, what's the earliest that we could, what's the earliest that we can go ahead and get this thing done? Are we talking,
well,
if they were able to do it, could we do it in 1 week?
Again, I don't know. It would be dependent on who your contractor that you choose, and they should be providing like a WSIB and insurance clearance and all that kind of stuff prior to.
Yeah, I guess I just meant, sorry, Jamie, I just meant that for us to do everything that we have to do by the municipality, how much time do we need? Are we ready to go right now?
A couple of weeks.
We still need we would still need 2 weeks to do everything that we have to do at the municipal level?
Probably, yes. Yep.
What do we have to do after we decide on who's going to be the provider?
As far as on for safety precautions, a WSIB and a valid insurance clearance on naming the township as an additional insurer is something that we need to get. As well, I know before I was heading out, the boys were still going to start working on like 1 or 2 culverts. So if they're able to finish those up or bump those back, that would be something that would have to be worked out. And then just scheduling the contractor.
Okay, so Jeff, I think Jeff, you had your hand up?
Yeah, I mean, I was just gonna ask that when we were doing the tender and everything else, did we stipulate to the tender and anything else that we need to have it laid by the 3rd week of August? Did we stipulate anything about that?
Yeah, I put in a date. I don't have that tender in front of me, but I did put down like the latest they were able to put down was September like 15th-ish.
Okay.
Okay, anything else on that? Any other further questions, comments? If not,
Jamie has something else there, Bill.
yes, Jeff?
No, it's
Jamie
okay.
has some- Okay.
Okay. Seeing none, I have a motion that council receive the crushed granular stone tender report, and that the following be approved, that council provide direction on the preferred option. Moved by?
So it's appropriate
Just
before.
1 sec, please,
No.
Jasmine. Just 1 sec, please. Moved by Karen and seconded,
Hang on.
pardon?
Should it not be the option in the motion?
Pardon?
Should the option not be mentioned in the motion? Just a question.
Council needs to provide direction before this motion is passed. Council needs to provide direction on their preferred motion.
I'm just trying to get a mover and seconder first.
We need to have an answer though.
Yeah.
I mean, council needs to know what they're moving and seconding, I think, at this point. So it would be
Okay, that's
appropriate.
fine.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's fine. That was going to be my very next question, but we can do that. I do have a mover, but I'll wait to get the seconder. So the option then, we have 3 options. Option 1, Option 2 or option 3?
So
Claus, you have your hand up there. What were you going to say?
Well, in the motion, I'd like to put in the option 2.
And before I go to everybody else, Karen, back to you, Jasmine, you were going to say something?
yeah, I did note that earlier in the discussion, I believe it was Deputy Reeve Vandermeer brought up option 2. So I just wanted to make sure.
Okay, so I'm going to go around then and get consensus with this, at least before we vote on it, okay? So this is just asking consensus and then we'll vote on it. So Claus, and now next, Karen,
Yes.
Ian,
Yes.
and Jeff.
Yeah, and as an explanation, I think, I mean, we have the 3 options, and I think we have a good price from Rob, but we tended to make sure that it was the best price. So I think I'm happy with going with option 2.
Okay, and I also agree. And now I'm going to go back to the motion and ask for a seconder. Ian? The council receive the following report, the crushed granular stone tender result, and that the following be approved. The council provide direction on the preferred option, which is
Option 2.
option 2. All in favor? And that is carried. Thank you, Jamie, for that.
You're welcome.
Okay, so now, I guess
Well,
Jamie,
Jamie's in.
I think Jamie maybe, this is the last part of the meeting that you needed to be with us for. And
Yeah.
I think that this is the last chance we'll be able to say publicly to thank you for all your work. I think it was a bit short-lived, but we certainly realize that why you're moving on. And I think on behalf of council that for you and your family, all the best in the future and in your move. And we want to thank you for everything. And it was like I said, it was a short time, I think, but an awful lot has taken place in the last since you've come. And I appreciate it. So anything else from anybody else? Okay, and maybe you had your hand up, Jamie.
I did. I just
Go ahead,
wanted
Jamie.
to say a few words just to thank all of you for everything. The opportunity to work with you all has been, you've kept me on my toes a lot. And I have learned a great deal from each and every one of you. And I think overall, it's really helped me become a better employee. You guys have been some tough people to work with,
We're trying.
also very, very kind. So I do thank you for all the time, and I really did appreciate it. So everyone take care and wash your hands, don't touch your face, and I'm gonna go drink.
What?
If you write a book about the experiences in Montague, maybe the 5 of us could get a free copy.
Yeah.
Oh, sure. Once I write my memoir.
I did see your hand go up, Jeff.
No, I was just saying it's good.
Okay. Oh, it was thumbs up. Okay, well,
All right,
thank
you
you.
guys take care.
Thanks, Jamie, for everything.
Jamie.
Ha-
Yeah,
have,
thank
you.
have one for us.
Good luck with everything.
Bye then.
Take
Thanks.
care.
Bye.
So we're moving on to the next report is yours, Jasmine. And that is going to be on the Rosedale Hall painting.
I muted myself. Thank you. So at the meeting on June 2nd, council did provide direction for staff to bring forward information related to painting of Rosedale Hall. So I have brought forward a few quotes. So Merle's Custom Painting is our low quote, which is $2,860. There's a potential for the additional for the primer if required. I have included cutting edge painting, which includes both the ceiling and the, so I separated all of them. So Ken's painting is the 3,200, not including materials, and then 3,000 for the ceiling, not including materials. And then cutting edge does include both. I did ask them last week to split the quote. Unfortunately, they didn't get back in time. And the quotes are not including trim. So I am recommending that we go with the low bid, Merle's Custom Painting, and to paint Rosedale Hall, and that the project be funded from our maintenance fund. I do want to note there is a possibility that we could, it appears that our Ontario Trillium Fund project is tracking under budget, but we are still awaiting our final invoice. So I think that if we are under budget, we could probably squeeze it into the Ontario Trillium Fund Rosedale Hall renovations, and I can confirm that with council at a later meeting. But for now, I'm recommending that it be funded from the Building Maintenance Fund.
Claus, and then Karen.
Okay, thank you, Reeve. Thanks for the report, Jasmine. So Merle's Custom Painting is $2,860 plus the $700 for the primer. Is the primer necessary?
It's potential for the additional primer. So if we go to, like, say, a white or an extremely light color, we may have to go with the primer. But if we choose something that's a little bit darker, maybe a little bit lighter, but like not quite as dark, we may not need the primer. So
okay, and sorry for a second question, Reeve. The ceiling, does it need to be done also?
It does need to be done, but it can certainly wait until next year when we have we can budget for that.
Okay. And timeline, when can they do this?
It's going to be, I told them in August or September. So basically as soon as we can get it done.
Okay, thank you.
Karen, and then Ian.
Well, I'm not a painter, but I do know that I think if we're going to be painting the hall, we should be including the ceiling and the trim and having it all done at once versus piecemealing. I mean, we've been closed, we're looking to open. I think we should have tendered to have the whole kit and caboodle done. And I don't know, to me, it just makes sense that if we're doing it, that's how it should be done.
Ian?
Yeah, Jasmine, the paint that they're using, is there a commercial grade paint that's like scrubbable, or you know what I mean, that can easily be cleaned or anything else like that, or disinfected, or anything else that we might need to do, like an institutional type paint or something? Just in the event that maybe, you know, COVID goes south and there's, you know, there's a need for daycare or anything else like that, that we can, you know, use the space and make sure that we have the ability to clean it properly.
We did ask for like a commercial level paint, given the planned use of the facility for all the quotes.
Right, so just so like somebody puts some kind of cleaner on there or something like that, it doesn't make streaks in the wall or something.
Yeah, understandable. Now,
So,
sorry.
Go ahead,
Just
Karen.
to address Councillor Jennings's question, I mean, Merle's Custom Painting was, the quote for both was low bid, so we could go with both this year and include the trim.
And
Council so chose.
And I totally agree with you, Karen. You know, if we're paying any of it, we may as well do it all at the same time, because we're just duplicating extra work. I mean, they have to put down sheets and protect what's already done next year. It doesn't seem to make sense. I think we should just do it all and get it done with. The same thing as I said earlier with the septic system, but that's another thing. I think next was Claus.
Yeah, I would agree with Karen too. I think by the time you add everything together, Merle's Custom Painting is still going to be less than Cutting Edge.
Okay, anybody else? Anybody else on this? Jeff, sorry.
Just before we go into the vote, I'm just gonna kind of let everybody know, I'm gonna abstain from voting on this one. And I don't have a connection to Merle's, but I basically I did call him because I had connected with him at the rink, the hockey rink actually. And we had discussed, and I knew he was a painter and everything else, his son played with my son and everything else. I coach his son in little hockey, whatever like that. And I did kind of go to him and say, hey, listen, we have a job there. If you're interested in it, and we discussed it a bit. I didn't discuss price or anything with him because I didn't obviously know what the price would be on it. But I did say, you know, I gave him the option to and gave him the information to quote on it. I don't have a conflict. I don't have a connection to him. I'm not related to him. But just so you know, I'm going to abstain from voting on it, just for that reason, because I don't want anybody to think that. But I did, just so you know, I did get him to. I didn't recommend him. I just basically I offered that for him to bid on it. So.
Okay, and if seeing no other questions and comments, I do have a motion that council receive the Rosedale Hall painting report and that the following be approved, that council authorize staff to engage Murals Custom Painting to paint Rosedale Hall, and that the project be funded from the maintenance fund. Moved by,
Hang on, Bill. Reeve Dawson.
so, okay, Karen.
No,
Sorry, Jasmine.
Do we want to go around and get direction? I think the motion can be fine, but we can note in the minutes that council directed staff to proceed with the wall, ceiling, and trim.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so I did see as a mover then Ian first, and then Claus. So you can add that, Jasmine. That was the staff direction.
Yes.
And I think that we all expressed that, so I think that's a fair assumption. So all in favor of this motion? And all in favor?
Yep.
Jeff, or are you
Jeff,
opposed? Pardon?
Just
He's
I'm abstaining.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. So that's carried. Thank you. We're going on to the next report, which is the Main Street funding update by you, Jasmine. Thanks.
So this is some positive news. So our Main Street Revitalization Program, we did do our final report for, I think, June. So we did end up having a surplus of $1,587.68, mostly due to the virtue of our interest accrual on our funds. AMO has allowed for an extension of the grant to October 31st, 2020. So we did have some difficulty purchasing some promotional materials in the implementation of our new branding. So I would recommend that we can utilize that extra $1,500 for that purpose. So
would that take up the balance?
we can just take up the balance, yes.
I guess this is a question, and I'm asking because I don't know. At one time when we were doing our rebranding and we were talking about signage and so on, we didn't just talk about the settlement areas and the signs, but I remember us also talking about some of the other entrances into the township and thinking that there could be a sign at that point. Even something as simple as welcoming people to Montague Township. I think there are other places, but I was thinking about that the Ford Road when it comes from Beckwith into Montague, and I just don't remember, is there a sign there now or not? Because for a long time there was no sign, so you didn't even know that you were in Montague Township. I just wondered if there's any money left over for a sign like that.
So we replaced all of the existing signs.
All of the existing
yeah.
signs?
Yes, that was.
But I'm just saying that at one time, there wasn't a sign existing at that point.
I don't believe there's a sign now.
Okay, I'm just sort of wondering if there are other places, like other roads coming into Montague that has no sign.
So the purchase of signage is not particularly cheap.
Well, I understand.
So for the purchase and installation of a sign, it's likely that, we probably only get maybe one sign.
Okay, well, it may be something that we'll have to address in another year, in another budget, but I do think that it's important. Ian?
Jasmine, what are we allowed to spend that money on?
So we've got general implementation, as long as we kind of frame it as implementation of our, in promotional materials of our branding. We can, that sort of implementation money of the branding can be used.
So we can't spin something into some extra pieces for the play structure over there? With some, maybe like a park bench with a sign on it that says Montague Township, you know, plant some trees, do whatever, some fencing and put the sign on the front of it. Anything of that nature that we could be imaginative with. I saw Councillor Carroll over there the other day with his children, and I think he was sitting on the pipe. So, you know, maybe for the adults that are going to take their kids there and, you know, spend some time there with them, maybe there's some measure things that we could do possibly if we're imaginative.
So I'm not sure if we can pay for a whole fence. I am fairly certain, but we'll have to double check in our agreement that I believe that beautification measures on public property is allowed. So certainly something like benches or trees, I believe would be usable. I will have to double check.
I know there was a email sent out earlier from one of the members of the recreational committee that had suggested in regards to some of the trees and stuff like that. It was a great idea. So if we could use some of that money to make some things like that happen, I'd be in favor of doing that.
And as far as benches are concerned, there may be a way that we could get the word out to the general public of Montague, because there may be a business in Montague that wouldn't mind stepping up to the plate and paying for a bench with a sign on it, compliments of XXX. Just a suggestion. I think originally I saw Jeff's hand, and then Claus, and then Karen.
Yeah, we had some great ideas here, and yeah, I guess you noticed me in there. I was there, and my kids had a lot of fun there. And just on that point, when I was there was a couple other kids there too as well, and their comments were about the play structure was like, "This is awesome." So I mean, I'm like, I guess this kid approves. That's kind of cool. On the other thing too, as well, as I'm wondering, like, I like the idea of promotional things. I know I've worn my shirt quite a lot, and I'm starting to wear it out. And I think I have a little stain on it too, as well, that I can't get out. So I wouldn't mind the shirt for promotional stuff, because I do like wearing them. So I'm at the golf course. But on another note too, as well, I'm just trying to think of other ideas, and I like where Ian's going. Like, okay, where can we go with this? And one of those things that have been in my mind that I've seen around our township is those, and they come from the city of Ottawa, and it's like slow down for our children, all that kind of idea. And I'd really like us to have some sort of something along those lines of being able to maybe put up signs of saying, like, you know, slow down for people enjoying country living at its best, for like those roads that people are walking on and everything else, to try to like just improve maybe some public safety on our roads. And I know people are adapting Ottawa signs for it, but I'd rather have Montague signs saying, "Welcome to Montague," and slow down for people enjoying themselves, country living at the best, or something along those lines. Anyway, I mean, I'm sure there's lots of suggestions we could do, but I mean, if we can incorporate some sort of safety on our roads, because I know a lot of people love walking on our roads. I mean, I see lots of people out on my road a lot of the times. I was driving down Matheson when I was going to the play structure, and there was people biking down that road using the nice paved shoulders. But I mean, opportunities to give sort of wording out there that for people to maybe realize that we want to watch out for those people. Anyways, that's another suggestion.
So you're soon going to need a lot more than $1,500, Jasmine.
Well, in fairness, those corrugated, sorry, I spoke out of turn.
No, and I understand. I was just making a dig there, Jeff,
Yeah.
because I was going to come up with another suggestion, maybe of coming up with a few little signs at some of the entrances coming into Montague, thanking our frontline workers. I know we have one on our digital sign, which is very nice, but I do see in most other municipalities a little sign on a little stake coming into the entrance, thanking our frontline workers. through COVID-19, but that's another suggestion. So as I said, Jasmine, you're going to need a lot more money. Claus, you're next, and then Karen.
Yeah, I'm wondering, with the extra money, I agree with you, Reeves, thanking the frontline workers. Can we put that sign on the Montague sign on the highway coming from Crown Place? Allowed to put anything on that sign?
Provincial highway.
The blue sign on the highway?
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
we cannot put anything on that sign.
it doesn't belong to us.
It would be taken down almost immediately.
Okay,
Karen?
So on that, so Highway 15 where it has Montague Township, is that not still done in blue? We can't put one of ours on it, eh? Because it's the county, or it's an MTO, I mean,
Yeah, it's an MTO like standard sign.
right?
And if,
I do like the
people-
idea of the
if-
benches.
And if you recall, one time Smith Falls wanted to utilize one of our signs on that highway, and we were turned down, so, by the province. Okay, so I think we've had some input here. Jasmine, anything else? Jasmine?
I do want to confirm, so under the eligibility criteria, I've looked it up while we're talking. Streetscaping and landscaping improvements, so lighting, banners, murals, street furniture, interpretive elements, public art, urban forestation, accessibility, telecommunications and broadband equipment, parking, active transportation infrastructure, and pedestrian walkways and trails are all eligible funds. So it's strategic municipal physical infrastructure. So I believe that the funding of some benches and some trees would definitely be eligible costs.
Okay, yes, Karen?
Just on the trees though, I like the idea of it. It just will have to definitely deal with placement, because that is an area for traffic that if a child were to run out because of tree placement, you want to make sure that it's still open enough for vehicles to see the child.
Absolutely.
And I'm wondering, it's just a suggestion, if we choose to put a bench there, could we also, before we choose that, could we also go to the public and maybe put it on our site, asking the public if they would be interested in donating a bench at the Playscape at Rosedale Hall? Could we do that?
I think so. But typically those types of donations are done through some sort of program. I mean, I don't think that there's anything stopping us from doing that.
It's just that, there's so many different things that we can legitimately spend this money on. There may be, I just wouldn't want to be spending it on something that somebody in the public would pay for on their behalf. And there would be a plaque put on the bench saying compliments of, as I said, XXX. Jeff?
I do want to point out was one thing, because I think the bench is a great idea. There is a bench there. Myself and the other two parents that were there, we were kind of sitting and leaning against those poles because you can't social distance on the bench, unfortunately. So we were more spread out in that sense, and that's where the shade was too. So and like to Karen's point about the trees, it'd be nice if you put maybe the tree near the bench that's currently there, because then we could have some shade. We could use that bench that was there too as well. But anyways, that's
Do we have a good picnic table that could be placed there now? Yes, Jasmine?
We have actually asked the public works staff to move a couple of the picnic tables that are in front of the Rosedale Hall to around the play structure. There's no
Good.
reason why they can't be moved back for an event. So yes, there
Yeah.
are some nice picnic tables there.
Okay. Okay, then I'm going to read this motion that council receive
What are
the
we doing?
Main Street funding report, and that the following be approved. The council authorize staff to utilize the remaining $1,587.68 of the Main Street funds for branding implementation by the purchase of promotional material. And that's going to be moved by I'm still waiting for mover and seconder, but for Jasmine. You
So I
want to-
believe there's been a couple suggestions here. I would suggest that whatever councillor feels, I think that there's been kind of clear consensus that there be a motion to amend prior to that that motion being called. So I do have kind of draft wording that that the motion be amended to read that council authorize staff to utilize the remainder of the Main Street funds for the purchase of trees and a bench at Rosedale Hall. Say an additional bench. And the remainder for promotional items.
Okay,
That sounds
that's
good.
fine. So do you need a mover and seconder for that amendment?
Yes.
Moved by Claus and seconded by Ian. This motion is for the amendment to the motion that Jasmine just read. All in favor of that? Okay, that is carried. And then we have to go back to the other motion. And how will it read then, Jasmine?
So that council received the following report, Clerk Administrator J. Ralph, Main Street funding, and that the following be approved. That council authorized staff to utilize the remainder of the Main Street fund for the purchase of trees, a bench, an additional bench at Rosedale Hall, and the remainder to be spent on promotional materials.
Okay, moved by Karen and seconded by Ian. All in favor? Okay, and that's carried. Thank you, Jasmine. And moving on, the next one is the IT services review.
So just gonna pull my report here. So back in February, council discussed the contract review of our IT service contract. And in April, further considered the IT RFP, which was undertaken by the Township of Lanark Highlands, and did proceed with the joint RFP. Now, when we did release the RFP, what Lanark Highlands and I discussed was essentially, because they were moving much faster than we were planning on doing, is that we were included as essentially a provisional item. So they tendered, they've already proceeded, and they're already working on it now. So we had a provisional item to access the services that have been tendered. So essentially, we're confident that Lanark Highlands went through an appropriate purchasing process to tender these services. So we're essentially attaching ourselves as a provisional item to their tender. So they were, Nova Pro was the successful bidder. So they've come up with an individual quote for the Township of Montague, which is for $8,700.48. That includes the municipal portion of HST. And this is to establish our IT gaps and address our items of concern, identify different options that we have to rectify the gaps and to institute best practices for our township, planning to identify capital upgrades and different server host options and recommendations related to our infrastructure, identify any efficiencies or partnership activities with other municipalities participating in the project, and analyze our health components of our IT network and security environment. So that's not only our safety, but also like overall the health of our network. And what this will help us do is help us not only kind of work to get us out of the IT contract, but also basically provide us recommendations for our optimal IT services and the optimal what we really need to address our needs. And while we could certainly write a tender and say, yes, we need new IT services, we don't have the expertise on staff, and I will admit I'm not an expert in IT, to be able to say this is the optimal level of IT services and this is exactly what we need. So what we may end up doing is under tendering and then having budget fluctuations through the year because we under tendered or over tendering and then end up paying for services that we didn't need. Because I will admit, like, none of us on staff are experts in IT. We just simply don't have that support. This study could be provided or funded through the Municipal Modernization Fund, which is designed to find efficiencies in our operations as well as increasing service delivery. So it's a very good match for that fund. And this will also ultimately mean that the project won't have any impact overall on the taxpayers or the regular budget, because it is a reserve fund. So I am recommending that we do move forward with it. I think it's our best option to kind of optimize exactly what we need for IT, as well as provide us a little bit more support in the IT environment with both the county and moving forward.
How long would this be for, Jasmine?
This will be a study, so it'll be probably take place during the fall and maybe early winter.
Okay. Any questions, Karen?
So we can't approach the county to ask them for assistance on this? Because that is our current provider, correct?
Yes, they are a current provider. This is not the type of service that they would provide or are set up to provide.
Okay, first Ian and then Jeff.
I, like you, Jasmine, I'm not a technical wizard by any, or I don't have a lot of expertise in IT services, I guess. I'm sure you're probably more technically adept than I am, actually, probably. But I just, for a little bit of me, it says about the $8,700. Like, do we have to do this study? Are there companies out there that can give us a list of what are the services they provide, so we don't have to spend the $8,700? I just, for a small township, I just find it a little hard that we have to spend $8,700 to have someone tell us what our IT needs might be. That's all.
And what were you? Did you have your hand up, Jeff?
Yeah, I mean, this is one that I questioned too as well, and I thank staff for answering my question before the meeting to make sure that a little bit about it too as well, because it is one of those tricky ones, and I'm not going to sit here and state that I'm an IT expert by any means. Experience in the background, but on the same token, I think the big part of it is this could save us money, because looking at what we have, we're also being under supported by what the county is doing. So I recognize obviously what Councillor Jennings is saying, but I don't know if we want to get the and I don't want to come off disrespectful of the county, but I don't know if we want to get the advice from the county to get the appropriate type of service that we need from them, because we're trying to get a better bang for the buck and a better service level than what they're offering, which I think we can in the private sector specifically. I see the advantage of doing this in the sense of it's going to narrow us down to, and I kind of had that discussion with Jasmine earlier. It does narrow us down more to really understanding what we need, so we don't overpay or underpay and still have sort of the levels that we're dealing with that we don't want to deal with. So there could be a cost savings. That $8,000 is pretty steep. I'd like to see it being a little cheaper, because I agree with Councillor Straight that we're a smaller township, and our actual demands are not very, very high. So I am curious of what they're doing for that much money, but we actually could see a good savings and actually a proper service level. And 5 years down the road, this $8,000 could potentially save us. So this is one that I did have questions earlier about, so because I wanted to basically digest it more before coming to the meeting, so I wouldn't have this discussion and I'd have to try to think about it in 30 seconds. And after that sort of digestion and having that conversation and kind of doing a little bit of understanding, and also talking with somebody in the field, this is probably a good move to do. to make sure that we're set up for success for our IT services for the future.
Okay, Claus?
Thanks, Reeve. I do too question the $8,700 to spend that. Jasmine, did Lanark Highlands go through the study? Did they do this?
They're in the middle of doing this study, yes.
And they're paying the $8,700 also?
They're paying significantly more than that.
Wow. I don't know. This is a tough one, whether you spend that or not. It's kind of damned if you do and damned if you don't. As Councillor Carroll has said, you know, it could be money well spent, but I just question what information they're going to give us for $8,700.
Okay, Karen and then Dean?
I mean, I've seen where you go out and you get these private people to come in and provide IT service, and it just skyrockets then on costings because of how extreme it goes, which is a concern that I have, that, you know, we ask for something, but the next thing you know, you're so far out that it's concerning to me. I know that if I'm not happy with a provider, I go back to them, which is where I come back to the county. And I mean, I don't know anything about their, I hear about their support and stuff, but it's like, if I'm having a provider in Cogeco or Bell or anybody, I just call them and say, I'm not happy with what I'm receiving. What can you improve? I mean, I think it's important that the county knows too, that the services they're providing to us for a fee aren't satisfactory, that we're having issues. And I think that Kurt should be informed of that. So that's also something that should be addressed.
Yeah.
I think it's a lot of money and I do have concerns.
Okay. Ian?
What's our current cost right now, Jasmine, for IT services?
So we have it kind of lumped together in our budget. So it's around $30,000 a year.
How much?
But that's not just IT.
Yeah, it's not just IT.
'Cause-
It's IT and I believe our internet.
Yeah.
And
Because I asked that question today too. So it says it's the high-speed internet, it's email, it's the GIS and IT servicing.
yeah, so email and IT is essentially the same. So I believe it does take up the majority of that $30,000 though.
You okay, Ian?
Will you finish,
Oh, yeah,
Ian?
I fell off my chair.
Yeah.
$30,000 for an email service. I don't know what, I don't. Wow.
That's expensive.
It's the
Right.
it's the email addresses too, right?
Mhm.
Well, geez, you can get those right on Hotmail, but this can't be that difficult.
Well,
Even
you
not
pay for
even.
it.
Holy crap.
Any other questions and comments then?
I think that this is also the reason why we want to address, you know, I want to make sure that any future tenders and future service we get is optimized from exactly what we need. And that's what this is really trying to do, is making sure that when we release those tenders and when we ask for that service, that we're getting exactly what we need and not any more or any less. Because I just wouldn't know. I wouldn't know.
Jeff?
I just want to reiterate kind of what Jasmine's saying about that too as well, because and I understand where Ian's coming from, and I think when we figure out exactly the services we need, we're actually going to see a reduction in what we're paying. And all of a sudden that $8,000 is not going to sound so bad in 3 years from now when we see that reduction in what we're going to be paying. Because yeah, we're probably in that 22 to 25 for what we're paying for those services to the county. So I think we're going to see a reduction in it. So
Ian?
Can we not go to some of our partnering townships though and get an idea what it is that they're doing?
The majority of
$700?
the majority of the townships that are very similar to us in terms of our needs all contract with the county.
Well, there's something. There has to be something going on if we feel that we're that far out of touch with the county, yet every other township within the county uses the county.
Mhm.
does everybody use?
No, Perth, the town of Carlton Place,
Yeah.
and the town of Smith Falls does not use the county IT.
So can we not touch base with the town of Perth and Carlton Place and see what they have? But everybody else right now, so Beckwith, Mississippi Mills, all those other people use the county,
Yes.
and they're happy
And
with
so
it.
it sounds like the people who are using the county, or the municipalities who are using the county, are the ones that are most similar to us.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yep.
Jeff and then Karen.
Yeah, because I was going to say, I mean, that's the problem is like, it's hard to compare to Carlton Place, Smiths Falls and Perth. There's a lot of different layers that they need for their IT services that we're not even remotely into. We don't have booking systems. We don't have, I mean, there's a lot of different out there yeah, it's tough. I can see where that can be tough to utilize. Once again, I think this is and I did mull over it. So I mean, and I think this is the right decision.
So, yeah, I guess we have a choice then. We either move forward with this motion and in the direction that the motion reads, or we defer this motion and decision until we have a better understanding of why it's not working with us and it is working with others. I'm just not sure whether what we should do. I do tend to agree, though, I think generally with Jeff that we should move forward, because I could see us, as you say, savings in the future. But I think, Jasmine, you wanted to say something, and then maybe Ian. Jasmine?
Yeah, I don't think that in terms of getting information from, say, other municipalities, I don't think that any of them are going to be amenable to having their comments on their relationship with Lanark County IT publicly provided to council, unfortunately, as much as that would be beneficial information for council to see. I'm not sure if they would be willing to have that happen. I would make the suggestion, unless there is clear direction on information that council wants to make this decision that would assist them, I would just call the vote and council can either approve or deny it. I'm not sure if there's a large utility in deferral.
Okay, so before I go to this motion then, did you have another comment, Ian?
Yeah, have we talked to the county about the poor service? Obviously, if the service must be great if we're considering going elsewhere.
We have talked to them many times, yes.
Jeff?
And I think this is a point also to go out to say, I know we've discussed this in many lengths and in many different types of contracts we've had in this council, is, are we getting the best bang for the buck? Are we doing the right things? And I think these are the opportunities. And I know we've had that discussion in these councils. Are we tendering out the right thing? So this is the opportunity to make sure that we're getting the best bang for the buck, and we could get better services for it. I truly believe we can get a better service for a cheaper price on the private sector, as long as we're putting it out. So that's why I'm for this. But this is, it's one we've always talked about, and I know that's been talked about by members of council. But we should be tendering out. And we should be making sure we're getting the best bang for the buck. So I think we have to realize that this is the opportunity to do that for IT services.
Okay, so I'm going to put this motion in front of council. That the council receive the following report, the IT services review, and that the following be approved. To the council authorize staff to enter into a contract with NovaPro for the provision of services as detailed in this report. All in favor? All in favor?
Bill, you
Now,
please do
hold it. Before I vote, I'm going to go back to you, Jasmine, because you're not voting, but you have
Yeah.
something to report.
You need to call mover and a seconder.
Oh, yes. Oh, thank you. So moved by Claus and seconded by Jeff. So all in favor? And that is, I am in favor, and that is carried. Oh, sorry, I should say, I should ask opposed. And I guess we've got one abstention. Oh, two
Sorry.
opposed. Okay, then
No,
that
it's not.
is okay, that's carried. Thank you. Moving on, we have the next one is the Pound Services contract.
Before I start on the Pound Services contract, I just want to note, I did make an error in my my painting quotation. I just want to note that cutting edge quote does include trim. It is substantially higher than the other bid. So my report does say no trim, but the cutting edge painting quote does include trim. I just wanted to make sure that council was made aware of that.
Ian?
I guess that then on that note, Jasmine, I guess before you give someone a contract for the painting, can we confirm the other people's quote for the trim as well? Just so
Yeah.
we're even, please.
Yes.
And it's up to you, I guess, if it comes in more or less at the end of the day. I want to make sure that we choose the cheapest option available.
Yes. Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, but it's not always the cheapest one, Ian.
No,
Not
but I think that's how the discussion went. I think from my point of view, in regards to who we picked, it wasn't. We didn't have a great discussion in regards to services by any company. It was more based on price.
Yeah, I'm just saying that we don't base everything on price, because we also base it on quality or history or whatever. Karen?
I was going to say the same thing because the others didn't include trim.
Yes.
Okay, so then Jasmine, we're moving on to the next report, the Pound Services contract.
Yes. So in 2015, sorry, I put 2016, but it was 2015, council did enter into a contract with Big Sky Ranch for the provision of the municipal pound. We are required to have provide pound keeping services in our respective municipalities. So the term has now elapsed. The Big Sky Ranch is proposing terms as to the attached letter. The fees are increasing, and the term is to be for a period of 1 year. I know we have had quite a big difficulty in the past establishing a connection with the Pound Services. Big Sky Ranch has been a very trusted and open partner in this process. We've had absolutely no issues with them during our contract term. So I did ask for comparison purposes, some of our area municipalities who they typically contract with. So there is quite a variety. There's Anita Stewart, who I believe the municipality previously had a contract with. And keeping in mind that these are not quotes, these are just other agreements from other people. The Brockville SPCA, which is $7,000 annually. The Almont Veterinary Services, which has a daily rate of $17 plus HT and $35 plus HST for weekends. Keeping in mind it's unlikely to be able to access their services. And then the Jim McBain Company, who typically contracts animal, they do pound services as a whole with animal control services. So note that animal impound fees are typically only charged to the municipality if the owner is not found to collect the animal. So, and all pound services contract includes provisions where the veterinary fees are to be charged to the municipality if they're deemed necessary, or to the owner if the dog is collected. So this contract amounts to a base amount of $3,000 for a 1-year term, which is kind of just on the edge of our requirement for quotations in our procurement policy. And we impound approximately 13 dogs a year, and of that number, approximately 40% go unclaimed. Those are very average. We do retain the right to solicit quotations for these services, although in the past we've had such difficulty securing these services for the municipality. The recommendation is to place a bylaw on the next meeting agenda to adopt the contract with Big Sky. And it would be, again, for a one-year term.
Questions, comments, Ian?
Yeah, Jasmine, can it be, if we extend it for more than 1 year, or do we get a better price or anything, or?
I can ask. They did offer only 1 year.
Okay,
So I think it's so that they can more regularly review the rates to make sure that they're not losing money.
Anything else?
No.
Okay, I have a motion. The council received the Pound Services contract report and that the following be approved. The council directs staff to place a bylaw on the next meeting agenda to adopt the contract with Big Sky Ranch. Moved by Karen and seconded by Claus. All in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. The next one is the iCompass contract, Jasmine.
Great. So council did provide direction back early in the year to approach iCompass for a 3-year contract after we tendered for meeting management software earlier in the year. They did offer $38.50 for a 1-year contract. So they have provided us a 3-year contract. There is a cost of living term in the contract, which is a 3% annual increase in service fees, which is, I think, very reasonable in terms of a cost of living increase. So I'm recommending that that contract be approved in the bylaw section of the meeting.
Any questions? Okay, the motion is that council receive the iCompass contract report and that the following be approved. The council approve the contract in the bylaw portion of the meeting. Moved by Karen and seconded by Jeff. All in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. The next one, the hangar lease agreements.
Great.
Jasmine, that's yours.
So we have received the lease that is available in the bylaw section of the meeting, which is just one lease for a new hangar at the airport. The township, or the town of Smith Falls and the Airport Commission have approved the leases. And as per our agreement, the township needs to ratify the leases by bylaw. The leases reflect the traditional lease format that under the agreement, the flying club is entitled to negotiate. A review of the agreement would enable that process to change. So the Airport Commission has indicated their willingness and desire to amend our existing agreement. And the town of Smith Falls has passed the attached resolution at the meeting in which they approved the lease agreement, sorry. I am recommending that council support that resolution as well as pass their own resolution to indicate their willingness to review the 1992 agreement, and also pass a similar motion to the town of Smith Falls, essentially freezing the approval of any new or transfer lease agreement until that such agreement is updated.
Okay. Any questions? Seeing none, I do have the next motion here, and that is that council receive the following report, the airport leases, and that the following be approved. The council pass the leases in bylaw portion of the meeting, and that council support resolution 2020-07-158 from the town of Smith Falls, and that the council of the township of Montague indicate their wish to review the 1992 agreement with the Smith Falls Flying Club, and that the council of the township of Montague will not approve any further lease hangar agreements and removes the delegated authority of the reeve and clerk to authorize transfer lease agreements until the 1992 agreement is updated and approved by bylaw. Seeing no, moved by moved by Claus and seconded by Jeff. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. And moving on, the burn bylaw amendment. And that is is our fire chief with us, or are you handling that, Jasmine?
I'm going to handle this one.
Okay,
So in the meeting of June 16th, a report was presented to council to prepare an amendment to our open air burn bylaw, which was to review our, remove the requirement to call in for campfires, as well as to, council did direct staff at that time to review the campfire size. We have looked into phone line options, and we can implement something in person or at the town hall with no cost. And so we put together a amendment which is in the bylaw section of the meeting, which is to increase the size of campfires to 30 inches. And our fire chief did go and kind of get an average size measurement of commercially built campfire bowls or pits, and it does reflect that average. So we are recommending that we increase it a little bit, and then also approve the amendments to remove the requirements to calling for campfires and increase that size.
any questions? Jeff?
I just want to say this is great. I think this is a good move for us to help alleviate some of the work on the staff. And also it makes it easier for the resident and better for the resident to have a campfire if they want to have one on a Saturday when they decide to do that. So I'm really glad that we're able to do that. And thanks for Chief Kerr for doing that. So kudos, Jasmine, if you can pass it off to him. That's great that he went out and measured and increased it a bit. I was hoping for a little bit more, but 30 inches is a good standard as far as to make sure that people are comfortable to have their little fires and everything else. So this is really good for I think people will really like this, because then it takes an extra hassle out of having a little campfire when you want to.
Okay, I do have a motion that council receive the burn permit bylaw report, and that the following be approved. The council approve the amendment to the open air burn bylaw in the bylaw section of the meeting, and that's moved by Ian and seconded by Jeff. All in favor? And that is carried.
I have a question, Reeve.
Thank you. Question? Yes, Jeff?
Sorry, I should have brought that up on my last little ramble there. Jasmine, how are we going to get this? Because I mean, I like to, obviously we're going to put this on our Facebook page or website saying, is it too late to get it out in our tax bill?
Yes, it's already been printed. They're going out this week.
That's cool. So, I mean, and this year is this year. So, I mean, we're already near the end anyways, but I want to make sure next year that we have it implemented. And I'm wondering if in our next tax bill, I just want to mention now before I forget when we get close to that part, can we have a note that it goes into our next tax bill's letter too, as well as say like the new fire rules, I guess you could say?
Absolutely, we can do that. I will say for the majority of it, it's only going to take kind of a 1 to 2 week cycle for the majority of people that call in to learn about the new rules, because they'll call in and we can let them know.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, now we're moving on to the reports of the committees. And the first one is the Committee of the Whole, July the 16th. Sorry, June the 16th, 2020, and July the 16th, 2020. And I do have a motion here. I will read it, that council approve the minutes of the meeting of Committee of the Whole meeting of June the 16th, 2020, and the special meeting of July the 16th, 2020, and approve the recommendation within. And that is going to be moved by Karen and seconded. Seconded
Sorry.
by Jeff. All in favor? That is carried. And next I'll go to any business arising from those minutes. Karen,
I don't know if it's business, but just question out of our last Eddie as to when the white sheds and the fire towers were coming down or being.
Yeah,
It's likely to happen either this week or next week. We just received all of our documentation as far as insurance and WSIB and everything. So it's they've been out. So it's going to happen soon.
and I think, Ian, did you have a question?
Yeah, that was my question exactly.
Okay, and Jeff?
I was just gonna make a comment and sort of my 2 cents on something, because I know this came up with on the last meeting, a question saying like, I thought that meeting was supposed to be about trying to find accessible housing for people. And I think like my impression is like we want to try to do what we can for accessible housing and financially feasible housing for people, but there's only so much a township can do without, I'm going to say, I think that falls in the county more than the township and also the province. Because a lot size, a lot price is a lot price, and digging a well and making a septic, those are all, you're already into easily $100,000 anyways. So it gets expensive. So we could do what we can to make sure that people can build certain sizes and make things accessible as possible. But I think, and I'm open for correction, but I don't know what more we can do when those are costs that we don't have a lot of control over. So anyways, that's kind of my 2 cents. We want to do what we can, but we also need to make sure that the county and if we're going to do any accessible housing, we need support from the county or the province.
Ian?
Yeah, actually on what Mr. Carroll is bringing up, a very valid point. And we learned that in our first term of council when we sat down in front of the minister and we were talking about funding opportunities for Adirondack and their water meters. And she made it very clear that a lot of the funding already has been passed on to the county, and that the county should be taking a larger role in what it is that they're doing for things just like exactly what Councillor Carroll just said. And, the province has handed the counties money to take care of these issues. And, if there's some issues that are occurring within townships, then maybe the county needs to step up and start doing something to address the issues.
Yes, Jeff?
On the 2 cents then, and I agree, because I think the county, and that's what the thing is, the county has that mandate, but I think their focus is on the bigger urban areas in our county, like Smiths Falls, Carleton Place. And when you read the reports of where the issues are or where the need is, it only ever talks about Perth, Smiths Falls, and Carleton Place. So once again, yeah, thank you, Councillor Straight, for saying that. Because it's hitting it right on the head, is that our hands are tied. So we want to help, but I want to make sure that people realize that. But our hands are tied, and really, I think the county's focus right now is also on those 3 bigger municipalities, and they don't really bring into the other municipalities into that play. So, but thank you, that's a great, yeah.
Klaus?
yeah. I've got a totally different question. Going back to Karen's question, when the shed and the fire tower thing was being removed. And Jasmine, you mentioned that next week we're waiting for proper documentation, WSIB and clearance certificates. When we request these, how long does it take for some of these suppliers or contractors to get that information?
So we have the documentation, and there's really no standard time. There's really no, some will wait until right before they are about to come. Some it's a lot to do with their own insurance company. It really varies. There's no set time.
Okay, I just curious, because on a personal note, I apply for those and I get them within a day. So anyhow, thank you.
Karen?
So then on that note, maybe is that something we put in our tenders to say that they have to have their insurance and their WSIB to us within a certain time frame so that we can get our project started when, sooner?
It could be something we put in a timeline. We usually have timelines for completion, so it's up to them to make sure they meet those milestones for completion.
Any other business arising from those minutes? If not, then we're going to be moving on to the bylaws, or well, we have no petitions. We're going to move on to the bylaws. And I have about 3 here, I believe. And the first bylaw is that bylaw 3785, 2020, being a bylaw to amend bylaw 3635, 2018, the open air burning bylaw, be read a first, second, and third time and passed, signed, and sealed this 4th day of August, 2020. That is going to be moved by Jeff.
Question?
Yeah, Karen.
Question at the top, it says bylaw 36XX 2018.
Oh, sorry, yes, they don't usually get numbered until they're passed, so it shouldn't affect the validity of the bylaw.
Okay, and then seconded by Karen.
Mhm.
All in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. The next bylaw I have is that bylaw 3786, 2020, being a bylaw to authorize the execution of the contract between iCompass and the Township of Montague, be read a first, second, and third time, and passed, signed, and sealed this 4th day of August, 2020. Moved by Karen and seconded by Jeff. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. And the last one, that bylaw 3787, 2020, being a bylaw to authorize the execution of lease agreements with owners of hangars erected at the Russ Beach, Smith Falls, Montague Airport. You read a first, second, and third time and passed, signed, and sealed this 4th day of August, 2020. All in favor?
You need to get a mover and seconder
Mover and
first.
shaker for you.
Sorry, moved by, I think Klaus had his hand up first, and Ian, second by Ian. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Now we're moving on to motions and notices. Motions, there are none. In the correspondence, we've got 2 correspondence items first to deal with under action items. And the first one is the site plan fee request. Jasmine, do you want to present that?
Sure. So I will note that Mr. Brundell really has let me know today that, or yesterday, sorry, that he is no longer requires this immediately, as he won't be submitting a site plan amendment. He's it had all due to with the fencing, so he's kind of continued with the fencing, so he's not going to need it. However, I think it is a useful request for council to contemplate, given that we already have existing direction to look over our user fees and charges bylaw. The addition of a site plan amendment fee that's not the full value of the site plan application, I think is a concept that is a good one that I would request that council would provide direction for staff to at least look into that and present options.
Would you be suggesting that we do that when we review our fees?
Yes, which we will be
don't need-
doing later this year.
Yeah, okay. Okay then, thanks for that. And the next one is the internet connectivity broadband information.
Yes, I did want to bring council's attention to some of this information. There is an ICON fund available, which is funding from the Ontario government for broadband infrastructure. It's not something that I don't think that we're in a position to apply for at the moment. But I do want council to know that there has been some significant discussion over access to broadband and high-speed internet, as you can demonstrate by the number of resolutions that are also attached to this this item. Also included in the package is kind of overview of how the Eastern Ontario Regional Network is, has provided related to the ICON funding. So it's just for council's information. There's been a lot of kind of movement in the area of broadband infrastructure in the last little while.
Okay, Ian?
Just on that note, I think that, some of the COVID-19 things that have occurred surrounding it regarding internet service, especially for students, has brought a lot of light to the provincial government's attention that, if you really want to move forward with online learning and let everybody have the ability to do so, that the broadband just really isn't quite sufficient to where it needs to be.
Okay, see nothing further on this, then we're going to move on to our information items. And we did have 4 information items move forward. And I'm going to speak to the first one. And the first one was C. And as you noticed, that there were various municipalities' motions sent in, and they were all to do with long-term care homes. I'm in favor of all of the motions, and I would like to propose that we support every one of those motions, because as I said, they all have to do with the long-term homes. It's no time to be pointing fingers, but I think we all know what the results of COVID-19 were when it comes to long-term care. And in some cases, the conditions were certainly much less than desirable. Matter of fact, fairly deplorable, some of them. And so these resolutions, they had to do generally with providing what the province, providing funding for more full-time positions. They had probably more part-time and casual. So these resolutions are promoting that they put up more money for full-time positions. Also, which I think is very important, that we support these resolutions because they talk about regular inspections for all long-term homes, not just a few of them. They used to have to inspect all of them, and more recently they haven't been. Matter of fact, I think out of several hundred, maybe low hundred, there were only 7 that had a full inspection in the last year prior to COVID-19. And I guess thirdly, that these resolutions are talking about putting sound infection control measures in place. And lastly, which I agree with, that we end, at least try to end, the neglect and the unacceptable conditions. So I'd like to propose that we support all of these. And do we need a motion for that, for all of them together, Jasmine? I think so.
If you'd like to propose a motion, then you can propose a general motion, and what we can do is when we send the motion of support, we can send all of the attached correspondence.
So yeah, I'm requesting that we support that, and I'll ask council if you support it. Can I have a mover and seconder for these? So moved by Jeff and seconded by Claus. Any comments?
No.
All in favor then? So we have unanimously supported those. Thank you, council. And moving on to the next one was F. And I read the report on the conserving barns of heritage significance. This report is only talking about barns that really do have a heritage significance. And this not-for-profit organization, which I didn't know about until I read about it here, basically their concern, they're wanting to do research. And the research that they'd like to be able to do more of has to do specifically on planning policy, on the planning policy frameworks. And I guess in their research so far, they've been finding that many of the barns are being demolished, and it's usually during severance or surplus farm dwelling discussions. And we all know that there's lots of good barns around that can see a second use other than farming, and to do with conservation and adapting to other uses. So I guess my thought would be to ask council, and maybe this is just a direction to staff, but to ask council if we could have our planner specifically look into this issue of conservation of barns of significant heritage in Ontario, but specifically for our area, if our planner could just look into that and see if there's something that he could bring back to us that we should be really looking at. So I just wondered if I'm going to ask if we could have consensus to do this, to give this staff direction. I'm going to go around and I'll ask each person. If there's any comments first, I'll ask. Jeff?
I do like where you're going with it, and I know that's something that's obviously near and dear to your heart for antiques and that kind of thing. I just have concerns because I mean, when you do these type of things with these type of buildings, it sometimes can stranglehold the landowner and stranglehold, and it's tricky on a barn too as well. So I mean, because I read it myself and I thought it sounds like a cool idea, but I mean, and there's a lot of abandoned barns out there. You drive around and you see these abandoned barns in the middle of the fields and everything else, and it's a shame that that's happened to them. But it sometimes times pass for those buildings, and it's unfortunate. And also, they're not. I'm going to use like history in Canada and history in the world is very different things. It's not like it's something that was built in 1432 or something like that. I mean, like I don't want someone to have a 150-year-old barn and now it's all of a sudden a historic thing, and they can't knock it down to it slows down development and all that kind of idea. I have a concern over it because I've seen these things in the past and I've read about these things in the past, and then it becomes an overreach. So that's what my concern is about it. I like the idea, but it creates a worry for me.
So just to be clear, I'm not proposing anything specific except to ask to give staff direction to our planner to look into this issue, because I just wanted maybe his comments on whether it would help or hinder, because it can do one or the other. So for him to present both sides of this issue and to see if it's going to help or hinder the preservation and how it has specifically to do with our planning policies and so on in Montague. So there would be nothing moving forward until we heard back from our planner with a simple report. Claus, you had your hand up?
I agree with some of your ideas, Reeve, and go along with Councillor Carroll. I think the planner should be made aware of some of the areas where some of these barns have been taken down and for why. And I'll give you a prime example. At the end of our road here, there was a barn that was built in 1925 pre-war, and it was in excellent shape. And there was a huge controversy about when it went down. And so Carl should get the history of why some of these barns did go down and which ones can be saved. It's a nice idea, but I think it's a very touchy subject that you're going to get into with some of the owners of these barns. Because I know it's a very very controversial thing when it happened here, when that barn went up in flames.
Yeah,
And,
I'm just proposing to look on both sides of this issue, that's all.
Yeah, okay, good idea.
Do we have any consensus here to give this staff direction? Do we have any consensus? I think, Ian, you had your comment, or you had your hand up?
Well, no, I just, I don't know that we want to spend money on, I understand it's a nice and novel thing to do. I just don't know that we want to spend money with our planner on doing this. We don't have a lot of control on what people do with their own private buildings around their property. So trying to stop them from ripping down a barn, and these guys are talking about changes to the provincial policy statement plans and everything else. Especially a little, as Councilor Carroll stated, a little bit intrusive. We start dictating who can do what and who can't do what.
I guess when I further read into the report, I could see the report did point out many attributions, or at least I should say benefits, to a municipality for preserving some of our heritage. And believe me, we've already lost a lot of our heritage in Montague Township. And I wouldn't want to see us continue to lose all of our heritage in terms of our architectural, I'm thinking architectural heritage.
Well, I agree with you on that point. Nobody likes to see them go, but at the end of the day, who's going to foot the bill to keep them up and keep them in proper condition? That's a lot of investment on a landowner that has no intention of using it.
Mm-hmm. And I guess then you have to look at the benefits or lack of benefits of having buildings falling down around you, and that's not a very nice site for trying to promote growth or tourism or anything else. Anyways, any other comments? Do we have, does anybody wish to put this forward then as staff direction or not? Okay, we're moving on then. The next one was G that I brought forward also, and that has to do with a fire chief in Canada being nominated. And I wanted to put it on the table because I would like to be able to see if council is interested in bringing forward the idea of our fire chief, Miles Greer, being nominated. The way I see it is that Miles has been with us a long time. He's not just been a good community leader, but he's been a leader in many different areas. And I see him being a leader, and I've seen it over the years in education, in training. I think he's got one of the most trained group of firefighters going. He's a real leader in promoting health, safety, and well-being of our residents. He's great at the communication area, and we know that he has a lot of pride in his community. So for many reasons, those are just a few of the reasons, I would like to put forward the idea of us nominating our fire chief to be one of these, to get one of these, to be nominated in one of these areas for the fire chiefs in Canada. So I just wanted to put that out to council and have a discussion. Claus?
I think it's a great idea. Okay, I just read through it. Have read through it quickly. And my question is, who will fill in the forms and do the paperwork on this?
I guess we could ask that question to Jasmine.
I think it would be up to council. So you could direct a staff member to do it. Or council could, it's something that council could take on themselves as well if they want to nominate one of their own. It's up to you.
Any ideas? The reason I wanted to bring it up was because I think there was a deadline. I can't remember what the deadline is, but it's not too far off.
12th of August.
Yeah.
I think it's I think it's a great idea, and if I don't know if maybe Christy has time to fill out the paperwork for the nomination, Jasmine, would that be feasible?
Yep, absolutely.
Claus?
Can we possibly maybe ask the fire department themselves to add some comments to it? There must be an area in there where they should be adding some comments.
I'm sure they'd be happy to contribute.
I think one of the captains or something could help out.
And I have not discussed this. I just thought about it after reading this, but I have not brought this up with our fire chief. And I guess it wouldn't be a bad idea for us to just initially let him know that there is a possibility before that. I think we should do that first before we get into spending any time and effort in doing this. So do we have staff direction to get, we'll just keep it generally to staff direction. I don't think we have to specify which staff, do we, Jasmine?
No, if you give staff direction, then I can assign it. Yeah.
Okay, so staff direction to look into this. I'll go around the table. Claus,
Yes.
Karen,
Yes.
Ian,
Yes, as long as you touch base with the fire chief first.
first, yeah, and Jeff.
Sure.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry to keep everybody so long here on these, but I did want to put these on the table. The last one was K. And again, that was one of these discussions that came in from various municipalities. And I would like to put this on the table to propose supporting all of the resolutions that came in. And the reason is because they were all about the same thing. They all had similar reasons for it. And that was the one that was under the universal basic income. And each one of them were asking the province and the federal government to investigate the feasibility of a universal basic income. So it was only to look into the feasibility of this. This could simplify, my belief is that it could simplify the whole social system and make it more fair. Because right now, I don't feel it is, and it's fairly complicated. And I know that there's been 2 or 3 other prototypes and studies done on basic income. And in every case where there was a program happening, I think maybe they tried it for a 2 or 3 year period. There were many good results and positive results at the end of it. But anyways, I'll throw that out to council. I would like to propose council support these resolutions about it. And it's basically in support of the feasibility, looking into the feasibility of having a universal basic income. So I'll throw that out to council. Jeff first.
It's a big can of worms for sure. And I hear what you're saying. I mean, there has been cases where universal income has been tried. I've read more failures than actual positive results, because it usually is a bigger issue than just a financial like sort of uptick to the bottom side of things. I mean, I'm game for doing what we can to help everybody in the vulnerable sector. Unfortunately, a lot of what I've read with the universal and that of the basic income is it's not sustainable, and it actually costs more and produces less results in the end of things. I know it keeps being brought up, but it hasn't shown to be a very it doesn't end up being productive, and it ends up costing more. But I mean, if we keep trying it, maybe changing it, I mean, I could be behind that, but that's unfortunately not the solution that gets people out of poverty. It just moves everything up. Anyway, that's my 2 cents on it. It's a tricky one.
Okay. Ian?
I agree. I think this is a much, much larger topic to be discussed than what is going on right there. And I think that, the whole social reform needs to happen, and the whole better system as a whole needs to come into play. I think there's lots of opportunities right now for employment, and unfortunately sometimes some of these things get in the road of actual people working. So.
Okay, anything else? Okay, then moving forward, we have no unfinished and other business. And before we go in camera, I'm going to ask Jasmine if we have any questions.
We have no questions over Facebook. I have one question that is a question for council. If I am understanding Jeff Carroll, he indicates that council meetings can be held and recorded and then viewed by the public. Are not all council meetings to be viewable by the public at the time it is held? Am I wrong about that? I think to clarify, Councillor Carroll, I think you were intending that it would be like a meeting where the public was allowed to attend in person and then a recording would be provided afterwards. Is that correct?
That is correct. What I was trying to get to is that we can have that, if we had to have an open meeting and try to keep it, in a very safe place like Rosedale Hall, and we could invite the public, but we may have to limit the public that can go in there because 2 people show up. I mean, we can't let them all in there. But then, so we're not turning off the public at all. That's what I was getting at when I was saying that clearly. And that we could record the session to make sure that, and still have it posted so people can still see it, and we're still being fully transparent in that sense. That's basically all I was trying to say. I mean, it's trying to get that through, because I know if we have an open session, there's going to be members of the public that would be leery of coming to a place like that. And we talk about the internet cost. That's where is it worth the internet cost at that point? And I think that's what we all kind of discussed. It wasn't there. So anyways, that was my point of view of it. But thanks for the question, though. It's a good question.
And I do want to note from like a meeting law standpoint that we need to either have meetings open to the public, or I believe there are still some municipalities that are recording their meetings and providing it very soon after their meetings. I think the vast majority live stream so that or the public can see that as it's happening.
Just on that, because can I just make one?
Yes, yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, because I wanted because my emphasis on that, because we are in a very unique and extreme time. So this is a unique situation to ever consider doing that, and that's why. So.
Okay. Okay, thanks. So we have no more questions. And my next motion here is that council recess at 8:26. That's moved by Ian and seconded by Karen. All in favor? That is carried. And so I think we could probably take about a 3-minute break, maybe?
Yeah,
About 3 minutes. And are you able to just mute us all for 3 minutes, Jasmine?
Yes, I will.
Is that enough time, council?
Yep.
3 minutes? Okay, so if you can mute all of us, Jasmine, that'd be great. Thanks.
So you. Muted. You're muted. Muted. There we go.
Yes. Okay.
So the yellow bins have hit Roger Stevens. About 8 o'clock, I got mine, and now they're just heading west. So they're heading back.
Who is that?
The yellow bins.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, he was just heading back by.
That's excellent. They should
So-
all be out by the end of the day today.
We don't have Claus or Jeff or Ian yet, do we?
No.
We're not live, right?
Yes, we are.
We are live?
Here's Jeff.
I'm here.
Ian.
Okay, I think I'm going to go ahead and start. Claus should be along in a sec here, hopefully. So welcome everybody to our committee of the whole meeting of August the 4th. I'm going to go ahead and open the meeting and remind all of council that if you have any disclosure of interest, you can declare it now or anytime during the meeting. We have no delegations, so we're going to go straight into the first report of the municipal officer. And the first one was on the fill policy. And I suspect that you're going to handle that, Jasmine?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Great. So back in 2017, we did create a waste fill policy that we did put the policy in place as we often
Oh,
had.
excuse me, Jasmine. I apologize for cutting you off. I didn't read the first motion here.
As you're still muted.
I'm sorry about that. I have a motion here that the committee of the whole approve the addendum to the August 4th, 2020 meeting. And that's going to be moved by Karen and seconded by Jeff. All in favor? Okay, that's carried. And also another motion that the committee of the whole approve agenda dated August the 4th, 2020 as amended, moved by Karen and seconded by Jeff. All in favor? And that is carried. And I'm going to go back to you, Jasmine. I apologize. I was just looking at the agenda, which didn't have the two motions. Thank you. So Jasmine, you can continue. Thanks.
Okay. So back in 2017, we did put together a waste fill policy to help us find areas to store and dispose of fill from our activities, our public works activities. And we also often receive requests for fill from township residents. So the provincial government has implemented a new regulation that significantly restricts the movement of excess soil during a work project and has very extensive requirements for the movement of soil and the storing of soil. That includes the like quantity as well as testing requirements for that soil. So it basically puts a significant onus on us and a significant cost and time implication on us to continue with the current fill policy that we have. So soil can remain in the work zone. Like for example, if we ditched on Rosedale North, we could put the soil on the other side of Rosedale North, or use the soil and to kind of spread it and grade the curve a little bit. But as far as moving soil, it becomes much more difficult and much more rigorous. This is one of the reasons why in one of the major reconstruction projects, the soil is taken by those contractors, as it becomes not our responsibility to both store and test that soil. So I am recommending that we do repeal our waste fill policy, as it does represent a much bigger liability as well as cost and time sink as it used to be. So due to the new regulation changes.
Is there a need for us to kind of keep some of this fill for ourselves? And I guess, first of all, the question would be, do we have room at our public works site? And would we see any future need for it on our 22 acres?
So in order to store any soil on a township site, we'd essentially need a certification to almost like a waste transfer facility. Like, so we would need, in order to store any soil for any amount of time, we'd need to go through like essentially like a certification.
Okay.
But we would not want
Klaus?
to do that.
Okay, Klaus? Oh, Klaus, mute.
You're on muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah,
Sorry. Jasmine, can we store soil and that in an abandoned quarry?
No. I mean, it's possible, but I doubt that there's going to be, I don't know how that would work in terms of our, if
Our
we
liability.
don't own an abandoned quarry. There is a aggregate license act, or aggregate license is included in that, but I'm not sure if you could take soil from another area and store it there without having any liability or insurance implications.
Okay, thank you.
anything else? Okay, if not, sorry, Ian?
So what we're saying essentially is, it doesn't matter who it is, whether it's us or ABC company, if you're doing construction work somewhere, you essentially can't take the soil from the construction area and if I own a piece of property, I can't take that piece of property and store it.
No, you can if you get the appropriate certification and follow the steps, but it does take a lot of time and some cost.
More red tape.
Anything else?
What are you supposed to do with it?
It appears that, I mean, it almost creates like a market almost. You can bring them to waste transfer facilities, so you can bring them to essentially landfill sites. But you'd have to have like a soil bank storage site or a soil processing site that would be able to take it, test it, and then treat it appropriately. Keeping in mind that much of the soil that we would take off of ditches and roadside would likely be contaminated with salt.
Okay, Jeff?
No, I mean, I almost want to put a motion to the government saying, I thought we had a government now that's working on eliminating red tape, not causing more red tape. So, I mean, I'm sure there's instances out there where like there's contaminated soil, but I'm sure there's lots of times when back and everything else. I mean, that means that if there's a place that's ripping up a parking lot, they can't take that parking lot stuff and bring it for a fill for somewhere else. They literally need to bring it to a place to get it dealt with, a transfer station, and go waste transfer station deal with it. But I mean, it's basically finding either there was a very strong lobbyist group that was looking to make a business here, or something. But I mean, this is a red tape thing that's basically causing a cost for, there's probably a few instances where it's good, but probably the majority are not. But I mean, what are we going to do? I mean, we can put a motion to say that this is ridiculous to the government and see if other people want to join, but that's about it.
Ian?
So interesting that this came up, because a couple of weeks ago when I was in Western Ontario, I was talking to a farmer, And one of the things that they brought up was this exactly, is that they're having an issue with construction sites in Toronto. Who just they go out in the rural municipalities. They purchase a piece of land, and if you're in the middle of Toronto, there's nowhere to go with all this soil. So all of a sudden they start reclaiming all the soil, dig it up, truck it out to these municipalities, and they just start bulldozing it into the fields.
Yes. And this is actually the what this program was designed to prevent, because there's a lot of contaminated, like, you know, age-old industrial contaminated soils that have been trucked out of the downtown, and it typically is the GTA, out to rural areas and contaminating soil out there. It's a pretty well documented and I think pretty major issue for those communities.
Sorry,
Jeff,
I guess the further, so basically it's the city of Toronto has an issue, so the rest of Ontario has to deal with it.
That's the suffer, yes.
Well, I think that if you know, I'm pretty sure there's lots of ABC companies that go and do just what you had mentioned, that they may do some excavation around a lot of these older industrial establishments, even around here. You know, used to just take their waste and they dump it outside the back door, and you know, they take that soil and they, you know, spread it out all over the place. They don't want to have to pay to have it to go to a proper disposal site. I'm sure it occurs around here quite more frequently than you think.
Okay.
anything else? I want to just remind people that there are a lot more cities doing the same as Toronto is in Ontario. They're not the only one. So we have a motion here that the Committee of the Whole receive the Fill Policy Report, and that the following be recommended to Council: that Council repealed the waste fill policy in its entirety. Moved by Karen and seconded by Ian. All in favor? Okay, that is carried. Thank you. We're going to move on to the next one. And that is yours also, Jasmine. The loose top gravel.
So during the June 16th meeting of council, staff did bring forward a report related to multi-year gravel tender for 2021 and 2022. Council has moved forward with essentially with adopting a upgraded gravel maintenance program, which was essentially double the amount of gravel that gets put on the road, and would see most gravel roads being re-graveled on every 4-year basis rather than an every 10-year basis, which is our current service levels. Staff is looking for direction as to when to release this 2-year tender. The benefits of a multi-year tender provide for more expected budgeting, as well as it's a little bit better in the second year contract year in terms of getting everything done on time. So we can either release a 2-year tender and put it out to the industry in fall when we get our new public works manager, or we can wait until our budget is finalized and release it then. Staff is recommending that it be put out in the fall, simply because this provides us certainty for our budgeting and provides, clear direction for activities, as well as it does make it so that we can kind of hit the ground running in the springtime.
Questions, comments? Ian?
Our current gravel contract, does it have the ability to be extended?
It has a 1-year extension program, yes.
Based on the results that we just saw on the last tender, would it be in our best interest to have a conversation about the extension?
Because I'm not going to say no, there's no value in having a conversation about it. However, because we are essentially doubling the amount that we're tendering for, it's it's quite possible that we'll see a greater economy of scale in the actual bid price. We are tendering for a lot more, so we might see a lower unit cost than when we tendered for a less per year. So that is likely tends to be how it works. I think there's a lot of benefit for a 2-year tender versus a 1-year extension, simply because we're essentially changing the gravel maintenance program by quite a lot. So I'm not going to say that there's absolutely no value in it, but I think that there is quite a lot of value in tendering for those reasons.
Jasmine, I'm wondering, or to all of council and public, like certainly I'm a real proponent of making better roads. And because there is the possibility of us doubling the amount of gravel, I guess I got 2 concerns. One, do we have the manpower to look after the extra grading? And also that if we're increasing the gravel output that much, then it's also going to affect, and it should affect, the amount of calcium that we're going to be having to put down. So those are 2 concerns, if somebody could address that.
So we're confident that with our current staffing levels and equipment levels, we can deliver this program. And it should not require any extra calcium. Ideally, the gravel goes down before the calcium, and the calcium is then applied to seal in that gravel. But we're doing more roads, so there shouldn't be any additional requirement for calcium.
Okay, thank you. Did I see your hand, Klaus? Yes.
Yeah, thank you, Reeve. Based on Ian Straight's comments, Councillor Straight, sorry. Jasmine, what does it cost to do this tendering process? Roughly?
Other than time, it's a advertisement in the paper.
Okay. My second question, if I may, Reeve, if we do
Yes.
go tender this for another 2 years, can we put in the tender documents that if all things are satisfactory to the road superintendent, to the road foreman and so forth, that an extension can be negotiated rather than go through a tendering process again?
I would expect that certainly the extensions can be put in there. But I would recommend that those extensions be granted by council.
Okay.
Karen?
So we're going to have this tender that's going out end as a new council comes in, because we go out in 2022, do we not?
Yes, that is why we didn't extend it more than 2 years,
Oh,
or one of the reasons.
Okay, seeing no further questions and comments, I have a motion that the committee of the whole receive the loose top maintenance tender report, and that the following be recommended to council: that council direct staff to complete a 2-year tender and put it out to the industry in the fall of 2020. This would provide a beneficial certainty as to the budgeting and provide a clear direction for future activities to staff and residents. Moved by Karen, seconded by Jeff. All in favor?
Of option 1,
I'm sorry.
of option 1.
yeah, which option are we going with?
Option.
So the motion that Reeve Dobson just read out was to direct staff to complete a 2-year tender and put it out to the industry in fall of 2020. So it would be
Okay, so that's option 1. Okay, sorry. Thank you. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So,
Thank you.
so all in favor? Opposed? So this is defeated. And does someone else want to put on a new motion?
So I think at this point, it might be appropriate, given that it's not time sensitive, that council provide some direction as to information they'd like to see, and then staff can come back with an additional report.
Okay, so could somebody put a motion on the floor then for staff direction to come back with another report? Now, are you moving this, Ian, or do you have a question?
Well, I think that we should have a logical conversation with our current supplier first before we move forward. That's all.
But would that not entail what we're going to give staff direction to do?
Sure, if that's what you'd like to do, I think that having that logical conversation is a first step, especially when there's an option there to extend a contract that we already know is quite sound. But
Well, I'm just asking if we want to give any staff direction right now. So Jeff, you had another question?
I guess I'm just trying to understand, because like, I mean, extending the contract is good because I mean, it's worked. We're spending more money for sure. I'm just trying to understand like how extending the contract or retendering it, because we're not locked into any price with our current provider. The current provider just offered us prices per the jobs that we had in our last tender that was given. So there's no obligation for that provider to offer us any reduced price if we continue with them. Like, and I'm trying to understand that, because I mean, like, we can keep the contract going, but like when you look at the past contract, it was basically, here are the different roads we want to do. What's the price you're going to give us for it? And those prices were given, but there was no holding to that price. But I mean, maybe I'm missing something. So I want to make sure I understand this. So if Jasmine can maybe clean that up a little bit.
So I'd
Yes.
suggest that
Sorry, Reeve.
that council direct staff clearly on option, like I believe we've had a suggestion that staff has directed staff to discuss with the supplier. I can bring back options as to what that would look like, because
Sure.
I'm not sure either.
Yeah, and that's the direction that I was proposing that we give council. I mean, sorry, that we give staff. If we just need, we don't need a motion, I can go around and get consensus on this.
Yes.
So Klaus
Yes, I would agree with doing that.
and Karen,
Yes.
Ian,
yep,
Jeff,
Yeah, we have time. So let's do it.
okay. Okay, that's great. Thanks for that, Jasmine and everybody. Moving on to the next report, and that's C, and that's the Public Works Manager second quarter activity report. And so I guess, Jasmine, do you have anything to say about this, or is any questions? Anybody have any questions on this? If not, I have a motion here that the Committee of the Whole receive the second quarter Public Works Activities Report, and that the following be recommended to council, that we receive this for information. This is going to be moved by Claus, seconded by Karen. All in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. Next one, D, that's going to be yours, Jasmine, the recreation feasibility study.
There is an addendum for this report to include an additional bidder that came in that ranked number 5, so Monteith Brown. So please refer to the addendum package related to this report.
Yep.
For the watchers at home, the addendum package is available if you go to the township website. We'll go to the township website, and under Committee of the Whole, there should be a link to the addendum package. So just for the users at home. So in May of 2020, council provided direction for staff to move forward with a recreation feasibility study using the terms in the report. So I've included the terms that were included in the RFP in the report so council can understand kind of what the product it is that you're getting. So it's engagement of stakeholders and residents as well as surrounding municipalities to develop a market needs assessment related to community needs and gaps, reviewing our demographics and national trends in recreation, plus market demands that would dictate what kind of recreational needs the township has. The study will also complete a financial analysis and must consider a number of different items, including potential sites and a high level estimated cost to potentially operate a facility, whether it's a kind of outdoor based facility or more indoor based is kind of up to the recommendations in the report. So we did post the RFP online for over 20 days and placed the RFP on Bid and Go. 29 companies either received the tender, 29 companies picked up the tender from Bid and Go and staff sent it directly to 3. We have received 5 bids. So the evaluation criteria is provided. And I have provided all of the consultants in ranked order in the report. So Menack, Kelly and Associates was the highest ranking bidder for the proposal at $29,100. The projects can be funded from the Recreation Reserve Fund. So we did increase the transfer to recreation reserves by a lot during 2020, and a portion of that money can be used to fund the study. So a study like this would essentially provide us with a shovel-ready project to provide a solid basis for grant funding or grant applications for future funding. So this would essentially be our grant applications. So it's something like the ICIP recreation grant. We'd have the ability to actually apply for funding for a project like that would be clearly supported by our community demographics and needs in the community. Council has a few options which I've detailed, so you can proceed with the project. You cannot proceed with the project, you can cancel it. And then you can also defer the project. We did undergo a competitive purchasing process in 2020. Council could choose to work with the highest ranking bidder to provide an updated quotation for the same services in a future year if we wanted to do that. So council has a few options. So I'm looking for council's direction on their preferred option.
So I don't see any hands up yet, so I'm just going to make a couple of comments. Like right from the beginning, my opinion, and I was in favor of doing a recreation feasibility study, but only if we were looking at a very wide criteria. Like for me, this feasibility study, it's not just about a recreational facility or a sports complex or anything. There's many, many more facets to recreation. First of all, I think the most important part of this study will be to engage the public, and I would hope that when we do engage the public, that we don't just have a small handful of people, because this engagement will tell us what direction we're going to go. And this is going to be one of the biggest projects, or it could be one of the biggest projects that we would ever do. But as I said, I would like to see a very wide criteria used in this study. I would hope that this study would be looking at other uses, as I said, than just a sports complex. That would include our 22 acres. What other things can we do? I have been thinking quite a bit through COVID-19 about outdoor education. Well, outdoor education has to do with recreation. Also, another area that I would hope this direction or this study to go in would be also to look at the acreage that we have under parkland in Montague. This is it's not very well known, I don't think, by council or the public, that we have a fairly substantial amount of land that we own that Montague received, I think, in lieu of back taxes or something many, many years ago. It could be 50, 60 or more years ago. But we do have that, and that also could be used for recreation. So, and then also for Rosedale Hall and recreational programs that could happen through Rosedale Hall, including recreational activities that our seniors in Montague Township could get involved with. So I don't want to see a very narrow study done. I'd like to see it really wide open. And, you know, that's just some comments that I've been thinking about with this study. So I don't see any other comments or questions. Maybe let's see Klaus there. Yes, Klaus.
Thank you, Reeve. I think this is all really good and great study to do. Right off the top of my head, I find it kind of expensive to spend this kind of money. I'm just wondering if we shouldn't maybe postpone it, not that it's not worthwhile, during the COVID situation that we're in right now. Is this a good time to be doing a study and going out and talking to people, doing a survey around the area and so forth? Should we maybe hold off on for a year until we get through this COVID nonsense?
I'm going to go to Jasmine and then on to Karen.
So all of the proposals did address COVID in their bidding. So they did, they all have kind of set up their engagement procedures to address COVID.
Hey, Karen.
So first, I'd like to inquire about that parkland. So perhaps it could be published so that we are aware of the parkland. Secondly, I did not support it the first time round, and I will not be supporting it this time around.
Jeff.
So I respect the comments I've heard so far, and thank you, Karen, for that too as well. I was kind of hoping we might be able to get a consensus of something along these lines to show our commitment to our residents of what we want to do for our next step. We've talked about growth, and now we want to talk about what we can do to help support that growth. And I think recreation is a big part of that too as well. And I agree with Bill. I think we have to look at it as a broad spectrum too as well. And I mean, like, everybody knows that I have sort of a vision, and I have strong feelings of what we should be doing in the township and what we could be doing. But it doesn't mean that I'm right either. It just means that I think that this is a great opportunity for us. On the same token, it opens up a broad spectrum to see how we can better the lives of the people in our township and our surrounding area. And I'll give it a great example. When I was at the new play structure we have, albeit a very, like, you know, I think it's a start of what we've done. And when I talked to parents that were there, a static of what we were doing in their backyard. And that was a huge part of it. And I think that is a big part of what is our unspoken. And if we do this study and we do it right, and we go out and we canvass the area and we talk to those parents and we talk to those seniors and we talk to those people, and they realize that they want something in their backyard and they want to see what we can do that's financially feasible. And if we put together a proposal and we get stuff ready for that, we have the potential to go off multi-million-dollar grants. So when we talk about, and the key on Klaus's point of the $30,000 being expensive, if we're talking about a $3 million investment into something, that's a 1% of your investment. So $30,000 is not a significant amount. And one of the things I want to bring up to council is one of the funding that's out there, and that we also, I'm not going to say we missed what was passed, but there's going to be other ones that are going to be just like that. And it's the Investing in Canada Infrastructure Program, Community Culture and Recreation. And there's a lot of big grants out there, and a lot of that is basically 40% federal, 33% provincial, and then 26% of the applicant. And those are also stackable too as well. So even though we're responsible maybe for that last part of it, it's a stackable grant that we could go after. On the same token, if we would have, in this example, you had to know by November of 2019 that you were doing that. You had until 2027 to then finish the project and utilize that money. So that means if you get approved for it, you have now the next 5 years to work on a plan to get the remainder of those funds, to work out agreements to make sure they're able to do that. So to me, I understand that, or I'm trying to understand why we would not want to go ahead with it, for the fact that we're giving the opportunity and we're showing to the public that we are willing to try to find ways to make your lives better in our municipality. And these are not huge spends in order to do that in the long run. The second token too, as well, is we made a commitment in this council to increase to our reserves to the amount of money that we're putting into our recreational reserves. And we're talking about going into a recreational reserve. Now we're saying, okay, why don't we spend some of that recreational reserve money to make sure that we're prepared and that we're adhering to the commitment that we made, that we're going to look at ways to help with the growth of the community and to find ways that we can do for our recreation. So in layman's terms, we're going to put 50 grand into our rec reserves right now. And we're talking about taking 30 out. We're still investing into our reserves, but we're now investing in that, but now we're actually starting to talk about a plan. And it doesn't mean that we're spending the money now. And that's what I'm emphasizing, that it's like, oh, now we have to have a plan for the following year. It starts the ball rolling. And if we even want to have a conversation of starting to do something in 5, 7, or 10 years down the road from now, it starts now. If we say we want to wait, we have to wait another 5 years. Now we're delaying it another 10, 15 years down the road. And I don't think it's the right call. And I don't think that's what the majority of those residents want. And I go back to that point of those people that are out there saying, yeah, we want stuff in our backyard. What can you do for us? And this is the example, and this is the time for us to do that. So it pains me when we're deciding not to invest in our township and not to invest in our residents of our township. And I think that is a huge part of this. So I'm very passionate about this, for the fact that this is why I got into this. I didn't get into this to make sure that we can basically save every dime and save every quarter that we're doing at. I got into this to make sure that we're finding ways to make things better for people. We've talked about that 22 acres. And I know past councils have talked about that 22 acres for years and have said, well, someday we're going to do it. Guess what, guys? Today's the day. Like, today's the day to start doing it. So, I mean, I really think if we want to, if you're really truly believing that you want to invest into our community, this is the time to do it. They've addressed COVID. This is the time that we're saying we're going to come out of COVID, and we're going to come out strong, and we're going to come out with a plan that's going to be invested in our community and invested in what we want our community to look like in the future. And we're also going to be looking at this to bring the community into it. And we want to, and I totally agree with Reeve Dobson in the sense that we want to get as much engagement out there. I don't want seven or eight people's opinions. I don't want even what we had from our last survey. I am game for door knocking and going out and talking to those people, especially those people that aren't vocal and they don't talk, but that's what they want in their backyard. So, I mean, this is the time to do it. And I really don't think deferring it is the answer. So anyways, I'm passionate with it. This is something that we have to really consider, and deferring it and putting it off is basically just doing what we do in the past councils. And we could just keep discussing about someday we're going to do something. Well, no, like someday, let's do it now. That's why we got into this. If you didn't get in to do this to make the community better, I mean, that's why we're here, folks. That's why we should be doing it. So anyways.
Okay, Jeff, another thing I was just going to comment on, I forgot to mention it earlier, because when I'm thinking of recreation, I have to go back to the situation that we invested a lot of money a few years ago through another stimulus package, paid for also by the provincial government and the federal government. And that is, I'm talking about the second soccer pitch. And we did our job in Montague But after that, nothing happened. So we've got a soccer pitch that there still hasn't been a ball kicked on. So again, I would be hoping that a study would look at that issue and also talk to the Upper Canada School Board to see if they don't want to do anything with the soccer pitch, then we'll take it over. But we would also be requesting, and we've talked about this, the possibility of them deeding some land at the back of their property, which could connect to our 22 acres. Because as I said, we've got a soccer pitch there. Well, we did that for recreation, but nothing's happened. So again, I would want to see this study look at a lot of different areas of recreation. You know, we've got a soccer pitch right there that actually is ready to go. We don't need a building for that, but we need it to move forward. So Karen.
Let's build off that
sorry.
soccer pitch, exactly.
Yeah. So Karen, I'm going to go to you.
It's great to be planning for the future. However, I think just back to June's meeting, maybe, where we had the discussion about how our buildings are so in need of repair and the costs that are going to be associated there, that I just don't think it is the time to be doing it. Because even if there's a grant available, we don't have the money to put into the repairs of our buildings and fund that as well. I mean, we've got a lot of seniors in the municipality that can't afford anymore. We've got people that are stretched to the limit. And if we gave them a break because of COVID, because of this, I don't know where the extra money is going to come from. Highest of a rural municipality, highest of tax rates now. I don't know how much more we're going to be able to do, because until we get more of assessment growth to be paying for this stuff, the residents we've got now are tapped out. So that's the problem, is that we have to figure out how to balance it.
Okay, Ian.
As much as, you know, I don't think there's any of us council that are sitting here right now that don't want something done on the 22 acres. I do agree with that portion of it, and I do understand what Councilor Claro is saying, that, you know, sitting still isn't maybe the answer either. But at the end of the day, I think we're a few steps ahead of where we need to be to get this done. I'd like to see, you know, the growth assessments, all those other things done for the building, the OP change, all that kind of stuff, to make sure that we have a way to be able to sustain it. Like, we have to be able to pay for this. Building is one thing, getting the grants another. How do you pay for it on a regular, ongoing basis? We can't depend, you know, if you can't do it on your own, and we have to depend on other municipalities around us. And what happens as soon as one of them backs out, or two of them back out, or three of them back out? Where does that leave us, and where does that leave our residents? These are residents on the hook, paying for a municipality or a recreational complex at this point in time that we probably can't afford. So I think there's a couple other things that I'd like to see put in place first, and then we can come back to this. But I want to make sure that at the end of the day, we have the growth that we need before I go take the next step in any of this, to make sure that we can afford to be able to do this stuff. And if we want to take a jump into doing something, you know, there's $30,000 there. Go, you know, put it towards an outdoor rink or a baseball diamond. All kinds of nice little things that we can do that we don't need to pay this here to somebody else to have done.
But as I was saying earlier, this study is not going to be a study specifically to talk about a building, any kind of a building. It's a study to talk about that plus many other things. There's many things in recreation that does not involve a building. So talking about a sports complex, or talking about a soccer pitch and so on, that's just one or two of many things that they should be looking at, as far as I'm concerned. I'm going to let you another follow-up, Ian, and then I'll go to Jeff.
You know, there's a ton of people that would love to have, just as much as people are right now are loving the play structure that we just built. You know, an outdoor rink is another real simple thing that you can build off of, that we can do, that we don't need to, if we're going to invest some cash, and we're going to take some of that money from the recreation fund that we put in there every year to do something that's relatively easy. They're going here. I'm not about to vote for something that I think that at the end of the day, we can't sustain on our own 2 feet. I won't ever put the people in the township in a poor position where, we can't afford to maintain or look after something. We're dependent on everybody else to do so.
So you were talking about an outdoor rink, Ian, and
Sure.
I know that I've pointed this out before, that as far as an outdoor rink is concerned, we have a third of our population could basically walk to a free outdoor rink, which is a state-of-the-art outdoor rink, which we never will be able to build, I don't think, at least for a long time in Montague Township. I'm talking about the one in Smith Falls. And I know that I often in the winter drive by it and don't see it being used a lot. It's not just that one, but we also have free access to another beautiful outdoor rink, that being in Merrickville.
I don't necessarily agree with that, Reed, but if that's the case,
Which part do you not agree with?
Well, that people can walk to it. If that was the case, then we didn't need a play structure either. And when I went by there the other day on 2 or 3 occasions, and one time I saw Councillor Carroll there, the other time I saw 5 or 6 other cars there. I think it's being well utilized. And I think that we have some other things that are relatively easy to manage and are cost effective, that they will be as well. And if people can walk to that rink in town, they can walk to a play structure in town just as easy.
Whether you walk or drive, I'm just trying to point out that we have access to 2 free outdoor rinks already. Claus?
Thank you, Reeve. I'm not opposed to a study, to Councillor Carroll's point, okay? And I know you got to spend money to make money and stuff like that. I find it hard to understand why these companies charge the money that they do. That's all there's to it. And as far as Councillor Straight, the rink, we did have a rink at Rosedale Hall, and it failed, unfortunately. I mean, I spent many days there myself cleaning it off and helping them water and putting the new gravel down to put a new base in and so forth. And the volunteers just kind of slipped away. I'm wondering, Jasmine, when these people engage to do this kind of study, I know they're going to talk to the public, they're going to talk to all kinds of groups and so forth. Would it be an idea for them to talk to some of our builders who are building homes in the township to see what these builders are looking for? They're building homes for people in regards to recreation. Are they going to consult them also?
They could include that, yes.
Because, unfortunately, we didn't have the builders form, but maybe they could talk to some of these builders and say, what would you guys like to see? So, thanks.
Okay, so I think I have Jeff first and then Karen.
So thank you. So and I think Councillor Straight and I think Councillor Jennings really hit the head on it, because they talked about affordability and cost and what we can afford and what we can't tax the taxpayers anymore, and we have to be careful. Those are all fantastic questions that we do not have an answer to. So by you putting that out there saying that we can't do it, you don't have the evidence to say that. And I'm not trying to come as confrontational, but in the sense of the whole point of this, of doing this, is to find ways to see how we can make it happen and how we and what is going to be out there that's going to make it work for people. And I understand where Councillor Straight, where you're coming from, saying we're going to build a rink. Well, is that the feasibly, and where do we put it? What's the most feasible thing to do? And we made that decision, and I think Claus made that point too as well. And maybe it didn't work as well. So we've learned from that. Now we have to figure out how we can build off of that. And that's where, like, we're talking about costs, and it's like, oh, we can't tax our taxpayers anymore. There's ways that obviously that we look at the finances to see where it's financially feasible. This helps us get there and gives us a framework so we know where to work from. And also when we're talking about, and once again, yes, I have a vision of a structure, like, because I think there's a humongous need for that. But also in the same token, I have a vision also for what is the overall recreational foundation that we can put forth for our residents. And I think that's a big portion of it too as well. So to say we're not financially, we can't do it, I think there's a side of it where we financially, we need to do it. It gives an advantage, and it gives a bonus to as well for our residents and also for our future growth. That's a big part of it too as well. And I think Claus hits that point too as well, is that we go to our developers and they say, what are you looking for? They're looking for infrastructure that's in place that makes it, people want to go there and makes them want to build there. And to have plans in place, they notice that, they will see that. So it's a big part of that is to get that picture so we know where we're going. So I sympathize with the side of it saying, well, no, where are we going with that? We can't afford to do it. We don't know if we can afford to do it, but we've invested money into it. In the last term of council and in our term of council, we've increased the amount of money to our reserves that has already now paid for that. So we haven't, like, we made that commitment to pay for that study by the increases to our reserves. We've done that. So now let's just put our money where our mouth is and do it. I mean, and then we'll know where we're going to go from there. I mean, like, if we're not, then why are we putting money into our recreational reserves? I mean, it's that's where it's the time to do it. And I understand and I respect where Councillor Jennings is coming from, and I respect where Councillor Straight is coming from as far as the worrying about the cost of it. This is the most cost-effective way to make sure that we're doing it the most appropriate way, and we're getting the best feedback from the public too as well of what we can do. And I think that's what that is a big portion of this. This is not about spending money. It's about finding the ways that is going to give our residents the best recreational options and help with our growth. This is a big multifaceted picture of this that, you know, by turning it down, we're still going to be limping along the way we've been doing. And I'm not trying to discredit what past councils have done, but this is a chance for us to take that next step. We know the growth of Beckwith. We know the growth of Carlton Place. We are on that bubble. So it's a time. It's a time to do that. That's why it's there's a side of it where it's actually costing us probably not to do it. And we're doing a disservice to our residents by not even exploring this.
Okay, Jeff, I'm going to cut you off there if I could, please. And
I don't think I can say any more.
We have to get to this motion here, and we still have a lot more to cover. And I think what I'm going to do is, because I did see Karen's hand up, Karen, I'm going to give you maybe the last word here, hopefully, and then I will read the motion. Karen?
I'm looking for a recorded vote.
Okay, that's fine. So I think we've all had lots of input here. And I'm going to read the motion that the Committee of the Whole receive the following report, the recreation feasibility study, and that the following be recommended to council, that council provide direction on the preferred option. Jasmine, before we get a mover and seconder on this.
So council should provide.
Pardon me?
Council should provide staff with the preferred option and then pass the motion.
Okay, so, and what are the options then on the table?
Option 2.
So as detailed in the report, there is option 1, which is to proceed with the study. Option 2, which is to not proceed with the study. And then option 3, which is to defer the study.
Okay, so so does somebody want to put on a preferred option first? And we'll try to get some consensus here. I see Jeff. Anybody else? Well, Jeff, do you want to put something on the table as a preferred option? Just simply, just keep it real simple. Which option?
I've said my piece. I've said my piece.
No, but which option? Okay, so which option? We need to get
project.
something on the table here. Which option?
Proceed with the project.
Okay, that's option number.
Option 1.
1. Okay, so I'm going to go around the table for option number 1. I'll start. Claus.
Yes, I would agree.
Karen?
Am I getting my recorded vote?
Oh, yes, I think so. I
So,
hope so.
so we'll go around and get consensus for the option. And then if we have consensus for the option, the recording vote will be called when the motion is called. That makes sense.
Okay. So Karen?
Option 1, no.
Jeff?
Option 1, yes.
Ian?
No.
Okay, and I'm going to vote yes. So now we're going to go to the motion, and we'll have to get a mover and seconder first. But the motion is for the recreation feasibility study, and that the following be recommended to council, that council provide direction on the preferred option, which is option number 1. Can I have a mover and seconder, please, to put this on the table? Okay, moved by Claus and seconded by Jeff. Okay, and now we have the recorded vote.
Give me 1 second. Okay, so Councillor Carroll,
Yay.
Reeve Dobson,
Yay.
Councillor Jennings,
Nay.
Councillor Straight,
Nay.
Deputy Reeve Vandermeer,
Yay.
and the motion carries.
Okay, thank you for that, everybody. We're moving on to the second quarter overtime report. Well, we've got all of the reports together here. So we've got the second quarter reports for the overtime, the financial, the MLEO report, the fire report, the second quarter fire report, the water, the water operator report, and also the second quarter building report.
Yes.
So I think what I'm going to do, just to speed up things then, that the committee of the whole receive the following reports, and that the following be recommended to council, that council receive the above reports for information. Do we have any comments or questions first on those? Karen?
So on the financial one, I did speak to Andrew today with questions that I had regarding some of the entries. And he's going to do some checking with staff and get back to me as to some of the costings that are there, because on some of them, we have gone over, some of them we are more than half over, and yet what we're looking at, so say for example, if we've got an equipment, or not equipment, a uniform line, and it said that we had $3,000 budgeted and we've already got 2,800 spent, we're only halfway through. I was asking for some clarification on that, so Andrew's to get back to me. On the building one, I mean, great to see that there's some breakdown that I was looking for to find out what more was there other than just houses. Question though on the amount of history that we're given. Is there a reason that we give like a 5-year history on all of this?
No particular reason. I think it's just for comparison purposes.
Because
Do you want
Well,
longer or
we
shorter?
used to have reports with no history.
yeah, of which, I mean, some history is fine, but I mean, I think we're getting a little excessive here about how it impacts us anyway when we look at budgets. I mean, they can keep the records in the background. I just don't know if it's all that relevant for us. And I
I
mean,
think one of the things, Karen, that past councils have really liked was that we were able to start establishing, or at least seeing, if there were any trends happening. So if we only say gave a couple of years, we wouldn't be able to do the same thing. But when you have 5 years, a 5-year history there, you start to be able to say whether there's a trend or not.
well, when the information wasn't there, I don't know what kind of trends you'd have gotten, because if it just said how many permits, it didn't tell you for what. So I'm not sure how that helped us, but anyway. And I
Mhm.
mean, graphs and stuff are all great, but again, I think it's getting a little excessive for that much of a report to be coming from staff for questions about what we're doing. The one thing on the financial though, is if we could start and see whether or not our treasurer thinks we're going to be online for our budgets, because this is just giving me what we've actually spent to what we budgeted, but whether he thinks, in speaking to our managers, they think they're going to stay on target or not. And if not, I think we should be advised, like the 2016 International that was purchased required quite a bit of excessive repairs, double the what we put in the budget. And it's something that happens, of course, but just so that we're aware versus just seeing it on a piece of paper.
A very good suggestion, yes.
Okay, anything else? Jeff?
I was wondering if we have any idea of where we are for the taxes paid as a percentage to previous years? If we're on track, if we're behind, if we're the same?
I apologize, I don't have that information right now, but we can, Andrew and I can arrange to have that emailed out to council this week.
That'd be great. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you, Jeff, for that question. And Jasmine? Anything else? Okay, so, pardon, Ian?
Yeah, when you go into the building reports, the commercial buildings, where are they? What are they? I'm just kind of interested. It says we have 2 new commercial buildings. What are the 2 new commercial buildings and where are they?
I can double check what they are. I don't know offhand, but I can double check.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? Seeing none? I need a mover and seconder for this report, please. Moved by Karen. Seconded by Claus. All in favor? Okay, and that's carried. Thank you. Moving on to, I think the next one is the reports of the committees. And we have none. Petitions, none. No motions, notice of motions. No unfinished business and other business. And be okay. I see Ian, please.
I have a quick question, I guess, for the Reeve and Deputy Reeve. I see that on Roger Stevens got a really nice coat of asphalt and they have paved shoulders and everything else. And then when they went and did 43, they just put a coat of chip and dip over the top of it. Is it not on the paved shoulder plan, or?
So my understanding of it, just in a general way, Ian, is that about 8 or 10 years ago, about 8 or 9 years ago now, maybe, the county started the 10-year plan to pave the shoulders of every county road, but only when it needed to be, only when it was due to be repulverized, I guess. So yes, there's pavement preservation taking place on some of the county roads, but if it wasn't time to do it, to repulverize and do the shoulders, it wouldn't be done. But it's probably still in that section. I would assume that it's probably still in line to have it done if and when the time comes to do the repulverization.
That's a horrible.
Closest to answer I can give you for now, unless Claus, do you have anything further to say about that?
No, you've explained it well, but I did, someone else asked me that same question and I put a call into Terry to see what the answer is and what the roads need study basically said for the county. Because
And I think it would be something similar to Roger Stevens in that, because I remember last year and the year before, people were asking, well, how come they only did the paved shoulders so far? But again, in the last part of Roger Stevens wasn't due to be done until this year.
Well, I just want to make sure that it'd be nice if it was on the list. Everybody's.
Well, I think every road is on the list.
I have one more question, I guess, maybe for Jasmine. The work that's being done on Rideau Avenue.
The ditching work, yes.
Is there a cost for the Township of Montague in that?
I don't believe so. I can double check. My understanding is no, because the town of Smith Falls does own both, like the whole extent of that road. But I will double check and get back to you.
Oh, perfect. Thank you.
Okay, so Jasmine, I'm going to ask you if we have any questions from the public.
We don't have anything from Facebook. I have one through email, which is, why would council want to spend money on a recreation feasibility study when Rosedale Health septic system is not fixed, so the township can fully use what the township has now?
Can you repeat that?
So why would council want to spend money on a recreation feasibility study when the Rosedale Hall septic system is not fixed, so the township can fully use what the township has now?
Yes, Jeff?
Yeah, I'd love to comment on that because I think the biggest thing is that we need to recognize what we need in our township. And I think one of the problems with, and I mean, Rosedale Hall is an interesting situation. I think, and it's also, when you look at those type of halls across many communities, is that they're all sort of limping along. I think we've done some great things that hopefully maybe put us ahead of the other ones that are limping along. And we'll continue to work on trying to fix the septic system, but it's not about saying pinpointing it down onto Rosedale Hall. It's looking at it going, okay, where's the next step and where's the future of this township going? So once again, I don't really see it as what are you spending money on? It's like, what are we investing in to see how we can get the best possible options for people in the township. And I don't know if Rosedale Hall is in that future option. And I think the feasibility study will also help us discover that too as well. And I think that's part of that full facet thing of what that feasibility study would do. So I think it's a great question because I think that's exactly where we're trying to go, is because the question is like, well, is Rosedale Hall the answer that we're looking at? Well, let's do the study and get a whole big picture of what that could look like, and then we can then look at what we can really do. So it's a great question because I think that basically encompasses why we're doing the feasibility study.
Okay, anything else on this? Okay, then I think that brings us to the end of the meeting, and I do have a motion that the committee, the whole meeting, do now adjourn at 9:39 p.m. All in favor? And that is carried. Okay, thank you for that. And I guess,
Bill,
so now we have to reconvene for the next meeting.
you do need a mover and a seconder for that last motion there.
I'm sorry about that. I apologize again. So that was moved by, I think it was moved by Jeff and seconded by Klaus. I see the two hands up.
Ian,
Okay, and that was carried. Thank you. And so we have now adjourned. And as I said, do we need time to break or can we go straight into our next part of the meeting?
Okay with going straight in.
Pardon me?
I'm okay with going straight in if everyone else is.
Okay, just one sec. Let me get my papers together here.
Ian, can you hear me, Ian?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll find out that question for you when I talk to Terry next week or this week.
Yep.
If he calls me back.
Okay, so I think I have a motion here that council reconvene at 9:40. Moved by Karen and seconded by Ian. I think I saw Ian, yeah. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. And so now I have a motion here that council moves to close session at 9:41 as per S 239 of the Municipal Act S0/2001 C25 in order to address personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, more specifically clerk administrator, update and performance evaluation. I need a mover and seconder. Moved by Karen and seconded by Jeff. All in favor? That is carried.
Okay, so let's just wait a few minutes. I'm just going to turn off the live.